Everyone, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the North Andover School Committee for November 16th, 2017, and start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded, and if you can silence your phones, that would be great. We'll start with public comment, and see none. And I don't think we have our student representatives tonight.
They may be late. They
Okay.
are at the
Open
high
house.
school open house tonight.
Which is a very exciting event. Great. So we're gonna we can invite them in when they get here. We can move on to the consent agenda then, with the approval of the regular session minutes from, I think it was October 19th. Yeah, a long time ago. So, go ahead.
I will move to accept the minutes of October 19th, 2017.
Motion by Mr. McDevitt, second by Ms. Lynch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we have a little packet of some executive session minutes. I think just 6 meetings worth. Did everybody get this packet? You should have gotten it online. So we're going to take them one at a time and approve these minutes. The first would be minutes from the executive session from November 3rd, 2016.
Make a motion to accept them?
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. McDevitt, second by by Mr. Trissy, second by Mr. McDevitt. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Are we supposed to abstain if we were not here, or are we supposed to vote?
Leave that to your discretion.
I know, I'm the one that brought it up.
Yes.
No, I know.
I personally have abstained in the past when I have not been present.
Do these need to be roll called, or do they not need to
I
be
guess,
roll called?
yes, they probably do. Yes.
Those are my two questions.
Thank you. My
Okay.
poor
So,
management
and
of that.
for anybody at home that may be listening, when we did our Mass Association of School Committee members training, they said that there was no reason that people who were not at a meeting should abstain, because the body is approving the record of the meeting, and by voting yes, it's to say that you accept these minutes as the record of the meeting. The practice of the school committee here in town has been to abstain if we were not at a session, so that's why I'm asking that. And then we'll figure that out as we go around the room.
All right, so I will start that again. I apologize. So we had a motion by Mr. Trissy, second by Mr. McDevitt about the minutes for November 3rd. Mr. Trissy.
Aye.
Mr. McDevitt.
Aye.
Ms. Picard.
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain also.
And I vote aye, yes. Okay, so that's a 3-0-1.
302.
2. Wow. It's been a long night already.
It's not meeting expectations.
It is not meeting expectations, that's right. Hopefully I will get closer on the goalpost, to the goalpost momentarily. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the executive session minutes from January 12, 2017 as they appear in the packet.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Trissy, second by Mr. McDevitt. Mr.
Aye.
Trissy.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Aye. 3-0-2.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from February 2nd, 2017 as they're presented in the packet.
I'll second that.
Mr. Trissy.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Aye. 3-0-2. And look at that. On
Now
April
you-
6, 2017, the current board was in place. Anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes from April 6, 2017?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented for April 6, 2017.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Ms. Picard, second by Ms. Lynch. Ms. Picard.
Aye.
Ms. Lynch.
Aye.
Mr. Trissy.
Aye.
Mr. McDevitt.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Motion to accept April 27th minutes of the executive session as presented.
Can I second if I'm the one who wrote the minutes? I guess I did it first.
Sure.
Okay, second.
All right, motion by Ms. Picard, second by Ms. Lynch.
Aye.
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 Aye, 5-0. Thank you all very much. Now we're going to move to our student report. We have Mr. Limo Carroll, if our friends at the table can let him sneak in for a moment.
Crew's gonna let you out.
Hi, just a couple of check-ins.
Sure.
Going to start with sports. On the 2nd of November, girls volleyball won. Field hockey lost to Masco 2-0. November 3rd, football won against Chelmsford 35-33. Girls soccer won against Boston Latin 4-1. November 4th, girls volleyball lost 3-2 to Winchester, and they were knocked out. November 5th, girls soccer lost 2-1 to Acton Boxborough. November 7th, boys soccer lost 4-1 to Concord Carlisle. November 8th, 5 athletes signed their NLI form for moving to college as an athlete. And football lost on November 11th to Lincoln Sudbury 27-7. And the only sport still going is cross country has 1 athlete, freshman girl, who's running the all-state meet. Coming up, or actually, Shorts Fest was last week, or 2 weeks ago, and that was really successful. Tonight we have our open house. Coming up on Saturday, there's the robotics competition, which is going to be a big thing. I'm a part of it. If anyone's going to, certainly it'll be all day, so I recommend taking a look down there. It's a great time. Spring sports start on the 27th. We have Thanksgiving coming up. Our pep rally on Wednesday.
Winter sports, right?
Sorry, winter sports. Thank you.
You're wishing your
Winter
senior year away. Right?
Yeah. Winter sports start on the 27th. Captain's practices are already underway. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So the robotics competition is at the high school?
At the high school this Saturday.
Do you know what time?
It's going to start around 9:30 and go until about 4.
Awesome.
Very nice.
And I think tomorrow night is also Wrestle Olympics.
Wrestle Olympics, that's right.
Which is, I think, the 4th year
Yes.
that they've been doing that.
is.
I think I want to say it's like
7
7
tomorrow
to
night, yeah.
9 or something like
Yeah.
that. But great event.
I'm excited. I'm going
I'm
this year.
glad to
so.
see it's continuing. So fantastic.
Great.
Awesome. How was the open house?
Just started, going strong. It looks like big turnout.
Good.
A lot of teams, a lot of clubs.
Did you send my son to the 4th floor?
Oh yeah. Check out the pool.
Thank you.
To the pool hallway, right?
Thank you.
Thank
Leah.
you. Okay, so we're going to move to the chair's report. We have not met in quite a while. So a couple things that happened in the last several weeks is the fantastic Educator Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Ed Martin. It was a lovely ceremony. He had really great words of wisdom. We're still trying to chase down what he had to say because I'd love to share that. Did you
have
get
it.
Do you have it?
I'll send it.
Because
Sorry.
a lot of people wanted
Yep,
access to
I got
that.
it.
So.
He needed us to edit it, so
Okay.
I will.
That he was great, and then we several teachers received their professional teacher status, and our lovely group is here tonight. We're part of that, and it was really wonderful. And everything you all prepared was great. It's a really special night. There were several Veterans Day celebrations in the last week at schools and in the town, and many people participated in that. And then the other big excitement people I'm sure want to hear about is that the Superintendent Search Advisory Committee has been interviewing candidates. And we feel, and this is something for us to discuss, we feel that we are going to be ready to decide which candidates we're going to put forward by Tuesday of next week. So originally, and I'm going to open up my calendar here, originally we had earmarked that we would come to the school committee by November 30th with our recommendations, and then hold the public interviews on the 7th. And so what I wanted us to talk about is we feel like we would be able to know by Tuesday, the 21st, who those finalists are. And so is it possible for us to announce those without having a formal meeting to announce them, and then looking at setting up the site visits, the interview, and the visits here, and the interviews on November 30th?
Well, I think if you feel comfortable and Ms. Lynch feel comfortable with that and the search committee feel comfortable with that, I think, if you guys know next Monday or Tuesday, I think it'd be tough. I mean, I know you've sworn that group to secrecy, but to hold their fire for 10 days, I think I'd be impressed if they could do that. If they knew who the 3, 4, 5 finalists, wherever they are, I think that you should get those names out, and then you know, if we could interview them on the 30th, I think that'd be great.
The group did feel we had a brief meeting tonight, and the group does feel comfortable with that timeline.
So I think the only thing that I would just caution us on is making sure that they have appropriate time to make sure that their districts
Yes.
know that they're going to be public.
Well,
So
that's
the-
why we would have time to then contact them all, make sure that they're wanting to go forward or not
Right.
before we announced anything. So the idea would be to call them on the 21st. And if some say, I need more time, or I want to think about it, then we'd have to respect that and decide. But I guess my first question is there any reason why we have to be at this meeting to share the names? Could I share them with each of you and then make a public statement sharing them? Or does it have to be at a school committee meeting?
I don't think it has to be a school committee. I think notifying us, and that seems a waste of time to wait till the 30th just for us to have a meeting. If you guys know what the finalists are, like I said, I think as hard as those people would try, Thanksgiving, hanging out, talking to people, football games, I think the word would get out. So I think that seems appropriate to me, to let us know and put out a public statement after, like Andrew said, after they are aware they're going to be finalists. Sure.
Yeah, and then that would be followed by providing us access to their resumes,
Exactly.
documentations, recommendations, all that stuff.
That would give you more time to look at all that stuff, give us time to set up with them when we can go visit their sites, schedule up for that day of the 30th to have them, which is what was done in the past, come here, get a visit here, and prepare to be interviewed that night.
But we would need to figure out a plan for coming up with questions.
Right.
As a committee,
What we
yeah.
would ask the candidates.
So my only kind of thought would be that if the subcommittee could maybe formulate those final names maybe on Monday, I think that would be the 20th.
We're scheduled to discuss it that night.
Okay.
But then I was trying to allow us time to then contact the people.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were doing all of that on the 21st.
No, on the
And I thought,
20th.
well,
Yeah,
people could be out of town or
Right,
something.
right,
so-
right.
So you
okay.
should be meeting on Monday,
and we have an extra meeting.
Will be done by then?
We have an extra meeting set up for the 27th, but as we discussed tonight, we don't think we're going to need it.
Well, that's really exciting news, and I think if we can just make a public announcement on the 21st, we should go forward with that. Do you need a motion, or do we just need to agree to that, or what is?
I think we're in agreement, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
we
that's
can make
great.
a motion to make a motion, but I think we're in agreement.
I
And,
think we should form another subcommittee.
well, that does have a follow-up question, which would be, so let's say we interview the candidates on the 30th. Our next scheduled meeting is not until December 7th, the next Thursday. I looked at what was done in the past, the last time, and the slate was announced on Monday, the 8th. The public interviews were on the 11th, Thursday, and then the following Monday, the 15th, the vote was done. So is there a way that if we're interviewing on Thursday, the 30th, could we convene a special meeting on Monday, December 4th, to vote on who we would like to or appoint or discuss the status? Or do we wait all the way till the 7th, which is already a pre-scheduled meeting?
Just one note about the 4th, that's when Andrew Mailer's doing his 5-year forecast, which we
Oh.
often go to, so
Yeah.
we may.
Then that's a
be
problem.
there.
Maybe the Tuesday,
No,
the
or
5th?
maybe it won't be a problem.
Well,
No,
we don't have to meet right at 7. We can meet at 6.
I just wanted to let you know
Yeah.
that that's
I have that on my.
What time
calendar
is
as
his
well,
meeting?
For other reasons.
7 o'clock, I think this
Yeah, but-
selectman is, so I just want
Oh,
you
right,
to
okay.
be aware of that.
We can also do Tuesday as well. I just
Or
don't
you
want to
can-
wait till all the way to Thursday.
You could do it around it, I just wanted to
Right.
let you know.
Okay. What do people think about that?
I'm available to meet on the 4th.
Concur.
I'm not positive yet.
Okay, understood.
Um,
Well, can we,
I think we should meet at 6 though, if we're gonna do it.
if we do it that day, could we agree though I would like to take care of this and not wait all the way till Thursday, the 7th, for two reasons. One, I think that's a very long time to go from the finalists to discussing how we feel. And also, it changes the whole tenor of that meeting on the 7th, which we have a business to conduct. So if we can't do that 4th, and I understand Mr. McDevitt has to check his schedule. I'm just bringing this up now because it just happened tonight. But maybe another day that week is what I'm suggesting.
we'll probably know tomorrow,
Okay.
so, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. But if you are available, or is that something that you're comfortable with doing?
Yes.
Everybody else?
Yes.
Okay. So tentatively, that's what we will do. And again, if our committee discovers that we can't pull it off on the 20th, we'll let you know that as well.
So just so I'm clear, the November 30th meeting would be
Yes.
fully interviews? So we
Yes.
would not be doing any presentations?
Right,
that
we're
night?
going to
Okay,
need to switch what
great.
we had originally planned,
Perfect.
right? And then I'd like to have that on the 30th be at 6 o'clock rather than 7. Is that possible? On the 30th, which is our next meeting, right? I'm in the wrong month, yeah.
So then the interviews would be something like 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9.
Or 9 to 10, and then the final show.
Right,
I think a lot depends on how many.
Oh,
Right.
that's true. If we
Yep.
have 4, then it would be
We had
45
three
minutes
last
each.
time.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
I just,
okay.
And we'd still keep the 7th for our regular meeting, so.
Right.
We'll be the 30th, the 4th hopefully, and then the 7th.
Right, and the 4th would just be to discuss that topic.
Yes. Sounds good, Madam Chair.
Or we wait till the 7th. But I just feel like that is a really long time to leave people hanging in the breeze, ourselves included.
yeah, I think that is tough.
Go ahead. When do we envision having them for the district?
I was looking at the same format as before, which was doing it the day of the interviews.
That day?
Mm-hmm,
Okay, so I think that that's part of the conversation that may need to be had with them on the 20th or the 21st as well.
exactly.
Hopefully they can make it and don't have a conflict or something, but.
Right.
Okay.
So the things that, just to let you know, the things that we'd talk to them about, if they're finalists, would be, we have a task that we want them to complete. We'd like to visit their district, and we'd like to have them come here, visit our district, and have an interview. Is there anything we're forgetting?
Who would be doing the visits to the other districts?
That's a good question.
Last time, I think that active school committee members were part of
Yes.
that.
That's correct.
Yes, so that would be, and I don't know that not all 5 of us would go.
No, we had 2. Stan and I went. Mr. Milley, I think you went to 2 out of the 3, or all 3, I don't remember.
No, I went to Newton.
Justin Newton?
Yep.
I don't know why I thought you went to Boylston, Boxford, or whatever that town was.
Berlin,
Okay.
Boylston.
Berlin, Boylston. Okay.
Well, and that all, depending on who the finalists are,
Right.
comes into question as well. So,
I don't think you can do more than 2, correct?
No. Nope.
You can't do more than 2, it would be a public meeting, right?
Right.
oh, more than 2 people, I think
Right.
more than 2
I did
districts.
2
I'm
of
like,
you.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, more than 2 of you.
Right, correct. So, that
just
week.
logistically,
Mm-hmm,
that leaves, you know,
27th,
only that
28th,
Monday,
and
Tuesday,
29th.
Wednesday
Mhm.
for visiting those districts, so.
Right.
and last time it was the same. And again, if we think this is a bad idea, we
And-
don't have to do
well,
it.
I mean, we had 3 candidates last time, so
Right.
depending on if you're bringing forward,
Right,
you know,
Right.
4 or 5, then,
Right.
you know, we could certainly divide and conquer in visiting districts or.
Right.
But I'm just looking at it and processing that
understood,
information
yeah.
along with you.
Well, there's also, I mean, people have their work schedules that you'd have to deal with too, so.
It was hectic, I can tell you that. I think that there's some good in having some continuity with at least one person on all 3 of them. Last time Stan was on the search committee as well as the touring committee, if that's a good way to put it. So that was nice because he was a familiar face to all the candidates as well.
Mhm.
I think it was nice. I don't know. Dr. Price, was that nice?
It was wonderful.
So, I mean, I think, you know, if you or, you know, Mrs. Lynch is able to attend, then one of the 2, I
Just
think
have
would
one
be good.
orthodontist
And then,
appointment.
you know, look at availability for the other dates. So,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah, I would have a lot of problems with the 28th, but I could work that out.
28th is the only day I could do.
You could do?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect then.
okay.
Well, actually, that's not continuity then. Okay, we'll
Well,
work
it's
it out.
continuity in one
At least one
member
of
from
us.
the search
Okay.
committee being there.
Great, okay.
Actually, I
Right.
take that back. I have a conciliation on the 28th. I just realized that.
Okay.
Well, did you do it 9 to 5? Like, how did it work?
It was pretty long.
2 to 3 hours.
Depends on how far you have to drive as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Boylston's a hike.
Right.
Yeah, we spent a pretty good amount of time there. I mean,
2
we
or 3
met.
hours, I think, in the school.
Right.
Okay. Well, we'll work with all that, those parameters, and come up with.
So morning or
My,
part
my
of what we'll-
recommendation, honestly, let's not like pin ourselves down. I think you guys have a little more work to do first.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you can let us know if the 30th is not reasonable. I think I'd like to shoot for that, but if it's not reasonable to get that work done, then we stick with the old schedule.
Okay. We do feel like it
See how
is.
many candidates you have, how far you have to travel, and see if they're available.
Right.
Right.
Okay. That's the update.
Sounds fair.
Thank you.
And then one other thing is just a preview that we previewed these meetings schedule through February 15th, and then we're supposed to pick up from there to preview the next. So if we can look at our calendars and be ready for our next meeting on the 7th to preview that, we'll want to do that because we already know of that Mr. McDevitt can't make now February 15th. Right.
Yep.
So just be ready with that. That was my only other update.
Just 2 quick updates for me. The first is the Live Your Learning Education Fund dinner is this weekend on Saturday night at 6:30 at the Brooks School. Thanks to Stop and Shop and Butcher Boy for their donations.
There's no the, just Brooks.
Oh, I apologize. The Brooks.
Brown Nicholas is button.
Oh.
I thought you were talking about the Butcher Boy. And I was going to say, it is the Butcher Boy.
At Brooks School. Thank you. So anyways, we're excited. Food is being prepared. All aspects have been picked up. A quick trip to Jamaica Plain today. So we're excited about the evening. As you know, it does really support our students who can't afford to travel. I will let you know that we have now supported 7 students as a result of last year's dinner. And we are officially out of funds, so hopefully this dinner will be successful. So 6:30 at Brooks School, and we have about 10 tickets left. So if anyone's interested out there that's listening, we'd love the support. And it's a fun night. I always say that the food is fantastic, and the wait staff is not so great. But that's because the wait staff is mostly a lot of people who are sitting in this room right now, and we're not very skilled. So. And then the last thing is today we actually launched the 3rd leg of Fit Money. So if you remember, our Fit Money is our financial literacy program that we've been doing in 4th and 5th grade and has been tied into the Eureka Math program for this year. And there's 3 components of it. One is a curriculum with our students in 4th and 5th grade. The second is a partnership with Lowell 5 Bank to encourage kids to open savings accounts and to save. And the last is a 529 fund, which is a mechanism to save tax-free for college. And today we actually launched the 529 fund with a number of families. And Fit Money has made a commitment to match the first $50 for all students in the North Andover Public Schools in 4th and 5th grade who start a 529 fund. So once the 529 fund is opened, after the first $50, Fit Money will match that $50. So really encouraging families to start thinking critically about saving for college. So that was launched today. And we have another parent meeting coming up on November 30th at 6 o'clock about that program. So I'll give you the update. So it was exciting to launch it today, and we had some parents come, and I think some 529 funds are being opened as we speak. So it's exciting.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Tracy, do we have a school building committee update?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've met. After, I don't know, end of October we met?
Yes, 16th, 19th.
So we went up to bid on November 1st like scheduled. We had the walkthrough with some of the prospective bidders on November 3rd, Friday, November 3rd. At that walkthrough, a couple of the prospective bidders felt they could not meet the November 17th deadline to submit bids, which is tomorrow. So after consulting with Jim and the OPM, the architect, they all felt we wouldn't be giving up anything as far as the timeline goes if we extended it to November 27th. So bids are now due at the town hall at 10 o'clock on November 27th. And if you think about it, it's really only 2.5 business days we're pushing it off by because of the holidays. And I think everyone felt, you can jump in, Jim, if you want to, felt that we would have a better chance of getting more bidders if we did extend it. So that was done by the school building committee. Today we had a meeting with some of the department heads to go over the site plan, and now that we kind of put the building off, that's out to bid, that's that. We're kind of refocusing now a little bit on the site. So I want to thank Ray Santilli, this is the town manager, for putting together this meeting today with the help of Jim. Had police, fire, DPW, the town engineer there to go over the difficulties of the site, the challenges that it presents with the different schools there, the traffic plan, dealing with Mass DOT. There's a lot going on at that site. The potential middle school renovation plan. There's a lot going on at that site. So very productive meeting today. I thought it went pretty well, Jim.
It did.
Yeah, good. So we are on schedule. Maybe on November 30th, if we have time before interviews, I could slip something in that maybe we have an accepted bid. That'd be okay, hopefully. So I think we're still on schedule. So let's
Very
put it-
good. Any questions? Okay, now we're on to old business.
So we're going to begin, obviously, it's so great to have our
It is.
principals from our elementary schools here, along with our single assistant principal now. And this is a team that we've, what?
She's married.
Our only one assistant principal, who is split, as you can see, she's very well positioned between the two principals where she is working. So what we thought we would do tonight is, I gave an overview of how we did it with MCAS as a district. And I've asked the principals to come in and give two things. One is, what are we doing as elementary schools in North Andover to really address student achievement and address pedagogy within our classrooms? And so we're going to start with kind of an overview. We've had some significant changes as a result of IBB that we really want to talk about. And then I've asked each principal in each school to talk about one or two things that they saw as successes and one or two things that they thought would be they want to share with you about kind of the work for this year. So hopefully that format makes sense for you. But we're going to really start with an overview of kind of some significant changes we've been able to make this year that we really believe are going to impact student learning.
Cool.
Is that a fair setup there, Mr. Gilligan?
Completely fair.
All right.
Outstanding.
All right. And I'm really excited. And by the way, you guys, thanks for being here.
Yes, it's great.
Nice to be here.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Stop, really,
Yeah.
really.
I'm starting off, I just want to say there's lots of positive things going on in the schools. There are elementary parents in the room that know how it feels at the middle and high school. This district's awesome. Teachers work really hard. Jen mentioned a few things about Lilith and Amy mentioned the Veterans Day functions. There's always community events happening in and around the schools. Kids are happy. Kids are working hard. Kids leave every day happy too. And that says a lot about the work we do, but mostly about the work the teachers do in the classroom. So I'm really happy to work here. It's my 11th year, and I don't want to go anywhere else. It's an amazing place to be. So thanks for what you do to support us. But our 5 elementary schools are doing great things academically, socially. You know all about raised values. Those happen every day. Those are practiced every day, reinforced during community events. Tons of volunteerism happens in our schools. We have recognition programs for the students who really work hard at that. You've supported the new curricular programs that are in place that increase the rigor that we have in our classrooms. Teachers and staff work extremely hard together every day to meet the needs, the learning, emotional needs, K-5. Before this year, teamwork happened a little bit differently. Elementary schools had their own unique ways of doing things, bringing teachers together to do common work. But this year, like Jen said, through IBB and the creativity of the people around this table, we were able to find a common time and a structure for all 5 schools to work with. Teachers were receptive about what we proposed to them. Sometimes it doesn't, you throw something out there that's totally new, different practice, you get resistance sometimes to change. But I'll tell you, the teachers in all our buildings were really awesome about saying, hey, this is what we've been asking for. We've been asking for more time to work together. So it's been a team effort to make it work well. So let me tell you a little bit more about the structure we put in place this year. We have collaboration time built in every single day, even on some Wednesdays when they're not wacky Wednesdays, those early release times. It's different from prep time. Teachers work independently really during prep time. Many choose to work together, but this is time, this
collaboration time that we built in are 45-minute blocks for each grade level, once every 8 school days. Meetings run for 45 minutes, 8:10 to 8:55. Classrooms, students are left in the classroom, led by specialist teachers, support teachers, and the meetings are open to faculty beyond the grade level team. A big piece of these meetings, it's not just grade level teachers, it's coordinators, it's coaches that make their time to come in and take a big role in the work that we're doing. There are objectives that we've talked about for these meetings, and you'll see in a few minutes something called the fishbone that we developed as a leadership team that really helps guide the collaborative work that we're doing. This is just a quick snapshot of the top portion of the schedule that we're all sharing this year. You see the grade levels marked on certain dates through the week. And you can see starting on October 16th, that was the first round of coaching that was happening. So coaches or coordinators come in, and they focused on math at the Atkinson and the Franklin, and at ELA at Kittredge and Sargent. Because we have 5 schools, Kittredge, Thompson, has its own set of dates. But it's awesome that the coordinators and the coaches have made the time, found time in their schedules to come and visit with the teachers and really work with them on the things that they need to make themselves better teachers. I'm going to pass, actually, Chris, I'll hang on to the clicker if that's okay with you, because this is one slide. And I'm going to click, and you're going to find out a little bit more about what we call the fishbone.
Fishbone. So here's the fishbone. The important thing to know about the fishbone is everything that's up there really, we hope, results in improved learning for all of our students. And again, this is a guide and a framework for our collaborative meetings. So I won't read everything in those, but basically as we go around from the left, really looking at our curriculum and teachers discussing the implementation of the new curriculums, especially this year, Eureka Math, and the existing curriculums. Supporting all students. Our classrooms are becoming increasingly diverse in many ways, so really looking at social emotional learning, how it impacts the students in the classroom, impacts their practice, and inclusive practices in the classroom. Teachers taking the time to look at student work, collaborating on student work, talking about student work, and what sorts of conclusions they can draw about their practice. And then finally looking at, down at the bottom to the left, looking at assessment and data, so state and district assessments. Really looking at that data with an eye towards what does the data show us and how might we use it to inform instruction in the classroom. I'm going to skip opening practice for a minute and come back to that at the end. And the far right at the bottom is instructional practice. So our teachers really looking at and sharing really what their instruction is, really looking at student-centered classrooms and how they're using best practices in the classroom to instruct their students. And then opening practice in the middle there at the bottom. And that's really teachers and teams looking at opening their practice to others to come in to observe, so that they can reflect, they can learn, they can discuss. I save this for the end because we have been, since I've been a part of North Andover, administrators, we actually do monthly walkthroughs where we go to each other's schools. We come up with a focus for other administrators, and we've opened up our practice because there's a certain amount of risk involved in that. You know, you're asking people to take a hard look and say, tell us what we're doing well and tell us what you think we need to work on here. So this year, we decided as a team that we would open that up to our FCIs, to our lead teachers, and to the coaches. So each month, we're inviting them to join us on these walkthroughs, and we've had a lot of participation from FCIs, lead teachers, and coaches the last couple of months where we were at the middle school and the high school. And I think that by helping them see what we do, then they can then transmit that back to the schools and really talk with other teachers about what we're doing. So I think it's good modeling on our part as administrators and helping some of the leaders in our building, teacher leaders, I should say, to encourage others to open up practice. I have just a couple more things that are not on a slide here before we turn it over to Joe. One of the things we also talked about this summer at our leadership retreat was what are the indicators for success that we're going to be looking for to ensure that these collaborative meetings, they're working potentially. So we came up with things like, of course, they're scheduled, which we have, they're attended, that we keep minutes so we can track it, that a high proportion of the meetings are focused on elements of the fishbone. Team members report changes, and they see changes not only in practice but in the data, the student data. Professional satisfaction, team members will report satisfaction, the fact that they've been able to get together with team members and they feel more satisfied in their work by doing that. And that, again, we look at celebrating and recognizing the things that are going on in these meetings. You know, what kinds of growth are we seeing in kids, and how do we take the time to celebrate that? So I'm going to turn it over to Joe now.
What's the fishbone?
That's the fishbone right there. That's the fishbone.
Supposed to look like a fish.
We affectionately call it the fishbone. We got the backbone, the head, and then the parts. So just go with it.
Bird bone.
It's the fishbone.
So Greg alluded to a number of times the importance of the coaches in the collaboration model and how it really is bringing all of the elementary schools together. The collaboration model that we have in place right now is really enhancing the amount of time that school level teams have to discuss teaching and learning. And the coaches are kind of the bridge to bring all of the 5 elementary schools together so that we increase that consistency that we have across the district, which is always a goal. We're very fortunate. We've got 3 incredible coaches, Ann, Joyce, and Jacqueline Rudolph. They have an interesting position because they actually split their time. They are kind of cut in half instructional coaches, and then the other half of their day is spent directly servicing students for reading intervention, which is amazing, and they do a fantastic job. They've been with us for a little over 3 years. They were just at the PTS ceremony, which was nice. And this year we've added Val Drine into the mix as our math coach, and she's been incredibly instrumental in helping us navigate through this new Eureka math program. She's been fantastic. She comes from a history of coaching. She's lived through a first year of Eureka math as a teacher. She's lived through coaching people through the first year, so she's been a great resource for us so far. Now this coaching model, it comes at us in many different ways, but it's all around collaboration. It can be in-class modeling, co-planning, co-teaching, offering professional development opportunities. It's all about working with teachers in this most important work we do, impacting student learning. Now the great thing about the coaches too is everything they do is non-evaluative. They are there to coach. They are there to help the teachers. They're not reporting back to us and saying, you know, Sally is doing terrible here. They're working with Sally to help her navigate through this system, which is incredible. One thing in some conversations with Val recently, we kind of came across something that she was doing in former districts, and we've been able to start to implement that here. And what it was she had principals take their teachers out of the classroom for a half day. They got half day subs or whatever. And she's been able to come in, work with a teaching team for a 3-hour chunk, that half a day chunk, and look at the next module in math. Talk about it, look at what the assessments are asking for at the end of the module, and work backwards, because that's how we plan our teaching. That's how we impact student learning and understanding. So Ann and Jackie are coming in, and Greg had mentioned they're part of the collaborative model that we have in place too, and they're scheduled throughout the year in order to keep that consistency up. They're at schools all the time, whether it's Atkinson, Franklin, Thompson, Sargent, Kittredge, wherever, but they're talking to teachers, and they're bringing the conversations there to the next school that they visit. And then when we have our district-wide professional developments on those wacky Wednesdays, we're all together. We just had one yesterday, and it was fantastic. We were talking about Eureka Math. Grade levels met together, talked about success. It started with successes, and that was the greatest thing to hear, because a month or two ago, there was a lot of anxiety around it, and now they're starting to see the success, and they're starting to see it really come together. So the coaching piece is incredibly important as we're moving forward. And the coaching piece, the collaboration, the focus of the fishbone, it's all going to impact student learning. It's not a matter of if it's going to, it's how much. How much are we going to improve? How much are we going to see excellence occur? Because if you ask any teacher, what do you need, what do you need, what do you need? More time. I need more time with my team. This team was able to collaborate together, modeling that, and give them the time that they need. it's vitally important, and we're very excited about it. And like Greg said too, the teachers are very excited about it. They come at 8:10, and I mean, getting them there at 8:10, boom, that's tough sometimes. And they're there, they're ready to work, and they go, and we're pushing them out the door to get back on time because they're finding the value in there. And it's been great so far. So something that we're very excited about all across the table, the teachers are excited about, and we're already seeing a lot of positives coming from it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of get into the individual school, just the successes and areas that we're going to continue to look at. We're going to kind of go right down the line, alphabetically. Not right down the line. We're going to skip around a little bit.
Somebody threw us off.
Who's out of order?
Do we want to, just based on all of this, are there any questions
Oh,
from you guys
absolutely, yeah.
about this part? And then we're going to do all the schools at once and then ask questions at the end. So are there any
Perfect.
questions about kind of the collaboration? Again, this was really an output of IBB. It's exciting that every morning we have teacher teams meeting. There's not a lot of districts that can say that, so.
My only question is, so this is implementing Eureka Math as a new program, and you're doing it this way. Based on other programs you've launched in the past, has this format allowed you to ramp up faster, or do you think it's just more effective?
It's not exclusively for Eureka Math.
No, I
It's
understand
not-
that.
yeah, oh,
But,
okay,
I mean,
all right.
it's like, for example, that's a new program. Is
Yeah.
this model that you're using of collaboration amongst yourselves, but also allowing the teachers, is that helping the Eureka Math kick off
Absolutely,
faster?
Absolutely.
Or more
because
strong?
we're giving them more time to talk about it, where they would find their time if they had common planning time. They might meet for lunch, which they're still doing.
Right.
And we're seeing more of that, too. We're seeing more collaboration spark because of this. But I would absolutely say, yes, this is a huge benefit to the rollout of this program.
I would question you guys, but I think everyone here who's been here for some time would say that the implementation of Eureka Math is probably the hardest implementation we've gone through. It is an
We
incredibly
talk about rigor for kids.
rigorous
This is rigor for
program.
This is rigor for the
Great.
adults, yeah.
I mean, so I.
Yeah, right? Oh.
Can't leave you out of the mix.
So I think the fact that we have this is almost vital, because this is especially in the first year, we've heard from every district that has implemented this, the first year of
Yeah.
implementing Eureka is one of the hardest years.
And you said
Yeah.
that people were anxious about that. Teachers were
Right.
anxious.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this has helped with that as well.
Absolutely. And what's nice is we had some teachers who've piloted Eureka Math in the past. So when we get together as a district, so for example, at Franklin, none of a specific team piloted Eureka Math.
Right.
When we can talk as a district, when we can meet with our coaches, we have that, you're going to get through this.
Right.
You're going to get there. And
You
we're
have power
already
users,
starting to feel that way. And just over the course of the year, the confidence is going to grow and the
Good.
benefits are going to roll on in.
And Joe mentioned the district PD like yesterday, so beyond the school and the collaborative time for a third grade team, let's say, when they get together then for the PD, they can then collaborate and talk with all the third grade teams
Right.
across the district. So there's so much value in that as well, so.
And yesterday, at the third grade meeting, there were a couple of your teachers who have actually been doing Eureka Math for approximately 4 years. And they made connections with some of the other teachers, where some of those other teachers are getting together after school together,
Wow.
to look at some of the lessons that they have modified. And so it's very exciting.
Good.
Definitely is. That's it.
So I have a question. Most of the work in the schools is happening by grade level. Do you have some things where they're talking about, between grade levels, so that when they're moving from first grade to second grade, you know what that looks like? Or will that maybe be brought in later?
I think it'll be brought in later structurally, but that happens at faculty meetings, that happens at building-based PD times. That's where we've built that in, but right now it's not part of that structure. The structure that we showed can include special educators, other support teachers who might be available at that time, who don't necessarily need coverage
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah.
but the vertical stuff's really important too. So we try to
We
build
did a
that.
lot of that at the end of last year around the Lucy Calkins,
Right.
after the first year full implementation of that. But that, like Greg was saying, typically happened at our building-based faculty meeting or professional development time on those wacky Wednesdays, when we're able to have everybody across the grade levels there. And I would envision that we will likely start to have those conversations around math as well, without losing the focus on Lucy Calkins.
And I'm imagining, too, that you all are elementary, focused, but you'll have those conversations across to the middle school as well for that transition.
Yeah, and just,
There
Yeah,
are
go ahead.
times actually set up with the middle school where our teachers, actually fifth grade teachers, are meeting with middle school teachers. You know, we have events where students actually participate. You know, we have a writing component that we do, every year. So, yeah, those conversations are there. But I think just like Greg had mentioned at the beginning of the session, there was collaboration going on at our schools, at one point.
Absolutely,
But
sure.
we all had to find a unique way to do that. And I think some of that vertical collaboration that you're talking about, that's what we're doing now, is we find those times, to do it. I think that eventually this collaboration period would turn into something like that. However, that's going on at all of our schools now.
Thanks.
One of the things too, we started is to have learning walks, to have them actually leave their classroom. Today I was in a fourth grade classroom that went down to a second grade just to see, because it's still the same curriculum, it's just at the rigor of second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So that's been fun, just to get the teachers out of their room, even if it's for a half an hour, to just see how the instruction's rolling out that way. And it's great for just the collegiality piece of it. When you're struggling through learning stuff together, to be able to see other people that might be struggling in the same way, or they might offer you a glimpse and this is the way you could do it a little bit differently. So it's been fun.
I would just add one thing. I think one of the key components of the PD for the early release, and when all the grade levels get together, and for your pieces that Joe was talking about, is that inclusion special educators are meeting with grade level teams and they're training together. So Donna and I have worked with these guys on that. It's I think that makes a big difference.
Right, absolutely. We're trying to extend that training also to the TAs that work with the students, so really collaboration across all areas.
so just one comment I have is when you think about consistent and rigorous curriculum, this is what it looks like, right? You really can't just say, we all want to do this. You really have to build in structures to make sure that consistency, and most importantly, that support is there, both structurally, but also in terms of the people. I can't underestimate the impact of our coaches who are just working their tails off to be supportive, and not let teachers kind of get frustrated in a moment and help them get through it.
Helen, I want to just add one more thing to the vertical piece. Judy Rogers and we have been working together to find ways to get kindergarten to meet with preschool so that culture can be built for next year.
Great.
We really think that's important. It's
I think
not
we
only
have
building a building,
6
it's
meetings
building a
scheduled for
culture.
them to
Yeah, so that's
together.
great.
That's great.
Yeah, really happy about that. All right, so moving into MCAS updates, those are some big achievements that I think will have big impacts for years and years to come. But based on 2017 MCAS results, I picked out three things to highlight. The performance levels, even though the rigor of the test increased, our performance, the curve of how the kids perform was pretty much consistent with years past. But I want to say something about fourth grade SGP, the student growth percentiles. ELA, we went up a few points, 3.5, up to 58.5. You want to be over 50. I mean, you really want to be over 50. And we shoot for 60 plus, but 58.5 in ELA for fourth grade last year, and we were at the 50th percentile for math. And I just put in parentheses there, that's really good growth with classes of 28 and 29. So I'm really happy with the work the teachers did there.
And this year, those classes are not 28 and 29 because we added a fourth,
That's right. We
there
added
we go.
a fourth fifth grade class. Our fifth grade students last year went up 30 points in ELA and growth, which was awesome. So 28's really low, so I don't know what really, but we went up to 58. So that was a great growth.
That was the
last year.
class that we had our meeting in.
Right.
Yep.
So I was just going to actually ask, I mean, how much do you think, because we really saw that Lucy Calkins in action kind of there. I mean, are you...
Right. I hope that it had an impact. It's hard to correlate one-to-one.
Okay.
But I'm sure it did. These kids were also challenged at every school. We did it as a computer-based test.
Absolutely.
Which I think limited a lot of what the kids could put down, what they're generally used to doing.
Right.
As we put the Chromebooks in their hands, they're getting better at using that technology. But they were, at this time, much more used to putting things pencil and paper. So I think that was somewhat of a challenge. So maybe if we had done it traditionally, it would look even better. But I think the Lucy Calkins, I'd say yes, it did have an impact on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And then there was some gains in math in fifth grade. My third point is, I feel like the Atkinson's an ever-changing school. We have a lot of students who move in, a lot of students move out. And last year, just in this testing cycle, we had new to Atkinson in 16 and 17, 40 students. 20% of the students that we had tested were brand new to the school, brand new to the district. And I think it's pretty awesome that we grew as much as we did, considering those kids didn't have really a North Andover experience or an Atkinson experience from kindergarten. I've been looking a lot at that data, and I think it's remarkable, really, what the teachers bring out of these kids when it comes to this one assessment.
So can you, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
when you have a statistic like that, do you dig deep and see how those 40 students are doing compared, and are those students lower than the kids who've been there for a while?
Yes. I looked at, I don't really know what to call them, the kids who started in kindergarten.
Yep.
You know, the term legacy, you know, for the
Sure.
testing comes up. So they're legacy kids, maybe, I don't know. And then we have joiners, kids that come in at all times. And I looked at the students that we had about 216 kids tested last year.
Yep.
104 of them were joiners. They were new to the Atkinson after kindergarten.
Okay.
Say that again.
216 students joined, 216 students tested, 104 had joined after their kindergarten year. Most
They could
were,
have then been there first to third.
first, could have been first to third, could have been first to fifth, but it wasn't, they didn't start with us. They weren't clapped in on that very first day. And
Anywhere in North Andover.
anywhere in North Andover, just new to the district, new to the school. And so there's a lot of change that happens, a lot of adjustments and adaptations that teachers have to make, and I really feel like they bring out the best in the kids. Performance levels were lower for the kids who
For these
joined
40
in.
students?
Yep, 14 to 24 percent difference, I think, on the performance levels. And growth was, the thing that impressed me was the growth was pretty consistent in the 50s for both the kids who started with us in kindergarten and the kids, which to me suggests that the teaching's really good. And no matter when you came in and where you came from, Atkinson teachers are working really hard to get you where you need to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can share that more with you.
No, I think it's a
Yeah,
good
it's
point
pretty
to make, and I
interesting
think it would give parents some comfort knowing, you know, that the consistent, rigorous curriculum that Dr. Price just mentioned, you know, they're going to see that over the course of their stay in North Andover, and they'll do well. So.
Yeah, I was really happy to look into it and see that.
One thing Mr. Landry didn't mention is many of these kids are English language learners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So out of all the kids serviced that get EL services, we have a total of 19 different languages in the district. And Mr. Landry's had the biggest influx of Spanish and Portuguese speaking kids.
Right.
And I think that you just registered some kids from Puerto Rico
Right.
that has put them up around 36 students receiving services at Atkinson's.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky to have support. We have an ELL teacher that's there, who's the coordinator for the district, Mary Mako, who does a great job with the kids. And we have Title I support that really helps supplement some things. So the next slide really talks about some of it's Title I funding, some of it's just, you know, creativity on how we can support kids and make time better for them. But the two things I want to focus on is the special education subgroup and the economically disadvantaged subgroup, also formerly known as the low-income subgroup. You know, just they're double-digit not meeting expectations when it comes to the number or the percentage in a certain category, that not meeting expectations that you mentioned earlier. We're trying these things out to see what kind of impact we can have on those numbers to bring them into single digits or to take them down to zero. You're going to see some 0% coming up soon. But we were able to add a special education / Title I teacher for grades 2 and 3, which is going to really impact caseloads. It has for K1 and for 4 or 5. Just giving that teacher more access to the students and giving them more specialized instruction is awesome. Math and reading fluency support continues with one of our teaching assistants in grades 2 to 5. We've expanded this technology link called RazKids, which helps with comprehension. It's something kids can do in school, in small groups, and outside of school. So we tripled the number of subscriptions I bought this summer to try to have a bigger impact on kids. Flexible math groups in grade 5. We've got volunteers who help with that, which is awesome. Again, leaving fewer kids in the classroom for the teacher to be able to help in whatever subject area this happens to be math. Intervention block scheduling that a lot of us do. It's more time for small groups. And then going back to that collaborative time, having time for regular and special education teachers to meet and talk about the students that they're servicing is really important. So I'm psyched that that's going on more this year. I put an asterisk before I pass it on, just that number I think is a little inflated, that 36. I think Rich will talk about this a little bit when it comes to his subgroup too. They changed the scoring. We had 8 kids who did the MCAS all portfolio, and without letting us know, teachers worked extremely hard to collect the student work and to put it through to the DESE. And the students scored what they would typically score, but how that was then categorized as a performance level fell into the not meeting expectations, where in the past it would have fallen into the needs improvement, which now is partially meeting expectations, and it increased that percentage significantly. Realistically, I think the number is 12%. Either way, double digits, and it's an area we need to work. So I just thought I'd throw that in and kind of give you a little bit of what Rich is going to share.
Well, I think if I could just comment to Mr. Landry, with regards to the student MCAS all portfolios, we always send our teachers for trainings, and they work with the state, and they bring their documents and have them reviewed as well. And there was still no indication that there was going to be changes, so everybody was really quite surprised by that.
Quite surprised.
So you get a binder that says progressing, and then the report we print out here says not meeting.
Right. And we appealed and we talked to people, and it just didn't, it never changed, so.
We're still waiting on some clarification from DESE.
That's what I've got. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Joe, you're up.
All right, so we saw a lot of great data coming out of the MCAS from Franklin this year. A lot of stuff that we were excited about, a lot of stuff that we could celebrate. We saw some great growth in our student growth percentiles, our SGPs, at both 4th and 5th grade level. Obviously, 3rd grade doesn't have SGP because it's their first time around taking the test. A couple I just wanted to point out. 4th grade math SGP went from 50 to 70. And like Greg was saying, 50s, you want to be above 50. If you're above 60, you're killing it. So they did a really great job there. In 5th grade in ELA, the SGP went from 54 to 62, again, above that 60 mark, which is great. Another point I just wanted to kind of throw out there, too, is that we saw a lot of growth overall when we looked at our school, which included both 4th and 5th grades in both ELA and math. Our overall SGP in ELA went from 50 to 59 this year, and 51.5 to 59.5 this year. So we're like right on the edge of that 60, and we're really looking at how we can push it. But that's great. That's great growth, and we're very, very excited about that, because what we talk about all the time is how are we helping our students grow? How are we helping them progress? How are we helping them find more confidence in themselves so that they can then present that out in whatever we're asking them to do, whether it's MCAS, whether it's a project at school, whatever it is. What Landry already kind of told you all, I guess I'll just tell it again. One of the things we always try to look at is our not meeting expectations, our formally warning, and how can we reduce that number. And we saw reductions for not meeting expectations in our students with disabilities subgroup, and that's a subgroup that we've been focused on for a number of years, because historically that's been the subgroup that's been performing the lowest for us. So in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, all 3 grade levels in ELA, we saw a decrease in the not meeting expectations, and in 4th and 5th grade we saw a decrease as well for math. 2 that I wanted to point out, both 4th grade, whatever they did, they got the magic. We're going to try to share that with everybody. But ELA, they went from 38% not meeting expectations last year to 0 this year.
And that's with the new measurements.
Yes.
And
that's with the new measurements and the enhanced tests, exactly.
Yeah.
The 4th grade math went from 23 to 0%. I mean, that is incredible. We are so excited about that. Now, thinking about the other side of that coin, we had a low percentage in meeting and exceeding expectations. So in that same subgroup, the students with disabilities, ELA, only 24% were meeting or exceeding, and math, only 8% were meeting or exceeding. So what that tells me is there's a huge chunk of our students in the partially meeting expectations group. So what we need to do there is really analyze their raw scores. See, where are you on that level? How many of you guys are right on the cusp? And what standards were they primarily not meeting on or partially meeting on? And how can we create plans for these students to help push them over, to help get them the understanding and the skill and the ability that they need to move up to that next level, to get into the meeting expectations? Because we know they can do it. It's a matter of helping them present that they can do it too. And then our overall percentage for the school for meeting and exceeding expectations, they dropped from 2016. ELA 81 to 72, math 81 to 69. Now, changed the format of the test. Everybody was doing it online. That was new. They enhanced the rigor of the test by adding part questions, different types of questions. There was a ton of technology. I mean, they had to drag and drop and raise bar graphs and things like that. But, so I'm not worried about those numbers, just to be clear. But it is a drop, and I don't like to see numbers going that direction. So thinking about all of this implementation that we're doing, the Lucy Calkins, the Eureka, Raz Kids, Lexia is another program that we're using for reading, all of these great resources that our teachers are learning more about every day, implementing with their students, it's going to show. You know, Mr. McDevitt, you asked the question about Lucy Calkins, and I agree with Greg. Yeah, it definitely had an impact. It's hard to say, yes, this impacted this in this way, but it did have an impact. Eureka is going to have an impact. This collaboration time is going to have an impact. So we're excited about all these things, and although I don't like those numbers, like I said, I'm not too concerned about it with the changes that were made, but it's a point of notion that I'm not psyched that they're down there, but we'll get them back. We'll get them back up. All right. The kit. You want me to click for you? All right, all right.
Okay.
Don't trust him with the clicker.
I know, no kidding.
It's a laser pointer too, Rich, so watch out.
At Kittredge Elementary School, we were definitely very anxious, there's no question about it. You know, when we thought about, first of all, taking the exam, you know, via computer, as well as, you know, knowing that the rigor of the test had, you know, really changed. And so, you know, when we got the results back, we were very happy to see some of the things that we did see. In math achievement, 70% of all of our students, and like we've been saying, you've been hearing, that number you really want to exceed is 50%, you know, and you really try to push to see that you can get 60% of all students to meet or exceed grade level expectations. Now, we did go down with, you know, our exceeded number did go down, but I'm telling you, most of the kids that didn't make that particular bar this year, you know, missed it by 1, 2, or 3 points. You know, so I think that when we start to really analyze the test and you know, do our item analysis, you know, we'll see, you know, where were the places that we were weak, and we'll start working on that. In fourth grade, we had a lot of success. 83% of our fourth graders met or exceeded grade level expectations. Fourth grade had a median growth of 90.5%, which is kind of,
We double
you know,
and triple
unheard.
check that because we
Yes, it
didn't
seems
believe it.
weird, right?
Yeah.
Quadruple.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually never seen it
Yeah.
at a school.
And I have to say that an awful lot of that has to do with the collaboration time that we actually implemented at the school. You know, the fourth grade teachers are constantly meeting together, staying late at night, coming in early in the morning, and they are always examining their practice. You know, they're always looking at, you know, just how can they get to those kids that are falling below the bar, but they're also looking at what about those kids that need to be pushed, okay, that, you know, are exceeding expectations, and what do they need to do there? So, you know, that's why I think you're seeing that type of growth there. In ELA achievement, 66% of all of our students, grades 3 through 5, met or exceeded grade level expectations. 72%, again, you know, when you're looking at that 50%, 72% of our fifth grade students, you know, exceeded or met grade level expectations. Again, we didn't hit as many in what we would have called the old, well, if we looked at the structure of our advanced, you know, it used to be advanced, you know, we would have had a great number of kids that hit that, what is now called exceeded, but the bar has really been raised at this point in time. The growth in ELA achievement for grade 5 was at 64%, which was good. I think when we started to do our item analysis, you know, over the past 2 weeks, we did notice that one area which is in writing, and that is item idea development, which is a area that we always needed to improve on. and we always kind of analyzed it, and we tried different strategies and tactics to use with the kids. We had success at every grade level, increasing, the percentage of success. And I mean, I have to be honest, after using Lucy Calkins for 2 years, I think on a consistent basis, I think we're hitting upon, all of those, all the things all the skills that are necessary for idea development with the kids. I mean, you can see in 3rd grade, we're 3 to 6 points above the state average. In 4th grade, we're 8 to 12 points above the state average. And then 5th grade, we were 14 to 19%, 19 percentage points above state average. So again, I feel like we did have a very successful year. We need to really, look at, again, what do we need to do? I really believe the Eureka Math program, the continuation of Lucy Calkins, will get us to that, rigor that we need then to display on the test. And so, again, MCAS is 1 day, 1 point, in the school year. We're seeing a lot of success with our kids through all of our formative assessments, our district-wide assessments. Again, it's really good to see this. This is what we base our curriculum that we utilize, within the district and at the school is based on the Massachusetts standards, So our teachers know just where the kids need to be, what they need to know, what they need to learn at every grade level, and when they're sending kids to the next grade level, what's expected at that grade level for those kids to know. So, I mean, that's what's digested. But now when you start getting tools like Eureka Math, Lucy Calkins, it eventually will make their job a lot easier. One of the things, areas of focus that we looked at, because it was really tough when we had MCAS alts come back as progressing, like Mr. Gilligan had said, we're very happy with just what we did with those alts, and it was celebratory when they came back, because of the comments, what people were saying about the alts, and then of course when we got our data back from the state, all of those kids who were on alts this year ended up in that lower category. And so I did speak to Bob Lee, who's one of the head statisticians at the Department of Education, DESE, and I said to him, I said, is this some sort of mistake? What has happened? Everything came in progressing. And he said it was really difficult this year because they really wanted to raise the bar and the rigor also on the alts. Of course, they didn't tell us that. With all the meetings that we went to, about alts, we never heard about that. The people who were helping us analyze our alt portfolios at workshops and progress sessions felt we were right on target with what we were doing. So it sort of was like an unfair, but this year we feel like we're really going to tear apart the MCAS alt rubric. We're going to look at that scoring rubric and, to make sure that we are, meeting the challenge and the rigor that they're looking for. He said that they would be putting out state exemplars, for the alts. So we're going to look at those, and try to model what we're doing after that. Special education teachers, they'll attend, like they have in the past, all MCAS portfolio workshops. And I think that when we go to the progress sessions that the state offers, we're going to have more rigorous questions for them, to make sure that we're right on target. So, and I think that goes for my colleagues too. We're in this together. We want to make sure that those kids are doing more than, not meeting expectations. So, all right, good.
Okay, that's Sergeant School. I've been waiting a long time to be able to speak for Sergeant School, it feels like.
Welcome.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you. And I would like to start by saying I'm most excited and pleased to share some things with you because I have been at Sergeant School for 3 years as assistant principal, and through those 3 years to be able to really come to know who are the players and the people and parents and teachers especially of Sergeant School. So as I think about being here tonight, I think about the success sheet right here in front of me, and I think about that is not reflective, in my opinion, of the hardworking, amazing teachers that I have come to know and respect greatly. And so I'm going to share this candidly with you, but it's not where I want it to be. And the second slide is the slide that I'm most energized from to talk about the area of focus. So the students proficient and advanced that we have are definitely not, as my colleagues have said, places where they are that they don't want to be or they are attaining to get to. I can just resoundingly tell you that, yes, 53% for ELA for 4th grade is not where we want to be, but it's not way, way down, but it's above the state. The ELA for 5th grade, same thing, 3rd grade and 4th grade. I would also be very candid with you and tell you that we had one of our most difficult conversations as a faculty with Dr. Price and Assistant Superintendent Gilligan, candidly to talk about why is this? And you could hear a pin drop in the room because the teachers who are so invested know that this does not reflect the work that we do. And so I share that with you because I had to do a slide here to tell you this, but I really want to ask you to, let me just go to the slide that's most important, is what are we going to do about it? So the areas of focus, and I really did put that word in with great intention, inspiring, because I am inspired by this challenge. And the inspiration comes because it's not my first year there, that I really do know who are the teachers, really, and who are the parents, and who are our students. And what's different this year is that, Dr. Price spoke to the teachers, Mr. Gilligan did as well. Then we had a parent MCAS night, and they both spoke very eloquently and shared about the new test. And then they said, okay, and now it's Leahy's turn, and she'll tell you how she's going to fix it, which was not really a good feeling and how I really pictured my opening as principal to be. So the first thing I did at the MCAS night with the parents is there was a group of chairs assembled in the cafeteria, and I took a chair away from the group and I put the chair in the middle of the room, as I would ask you to envision tonight. And I said, one thing I know with great resolve is that I can't do this by myself. And so that leads me to tell you about our area of focus and what's going to change and how it's going to happen at Sergeant School. So one of the recognitions that we definitely agree, and through the lens of Dr. Price and Mr. Gilligan and several other people that I value and respect in the district who have been doing this for a while, is that we have an area because of, the second bullet of teaching all students and effective collaboration. You've heard certainly enough tonight about how important collaboration is. And do we collaborate? Yes, but can we do better with it and really hone it in and focus well? That's definitely an area that we're going to focus on. The teaching all students encompasses, sounds silly, but all students, it should be every single school should be teaching all students. But because if we dove deeper into the MCAS results, area of special education is certainly an area, but we're not separating, we're including it as all students, that we want all students to achieve. So what are we doing? One of the things before Dr. Price and Mr. Gilligan and I sat in my office for a couple hours and went through, okay, let's walk through what this is going to look like and talk with your faculty and let's think about it. So I said, all right, one thing I know for sure, and I have repeated it to the teachers, is in my experience of teaching, and I've been at the high school and in 4 different schools here in the district and out of the district, I really would match any one of my teachers up against any teacher in the district or out of it, as far as for the level of intense passion that they have for what they do and their work ethic. So just hold on to that for a minute. If you start with that as a foundation, my background has also been in coaching. So if you get people who want to work hard, I'll take any group on the planet as long as they want to work hard with me. So that's in place. And so what I said to Dr. Price is, I need to have time with them in order to be able to do this and build it where we want to. I asked for some time to put together a design team, we're calling it, we had our first meeting yesterday, who are representative of K through 5th grade, as well as special education. And I asked that we get some of this, so when everyone else was at the PD for 2 hours yesterday, we met for almost 3 hours and started to go through this. So the design team also incorporates the leadership. And again, remember my chair, I'm not sitting on it alone. The great gift that I received in this position is sitting right here to my left. And that even though she has to share Franklin School and Sargent School, Erin comes with 16 years of elementary classroom teaching. And that lens and perspective that she offers me is tremendous. I can't tell you, even if I had her for an hour, and I don't want to suggest that and cut the budget any less, but the 2 days and then the 3 days that I have her, I may have notes just to say, check with Erin on this. Erin, what do you think? When we go into a collaboration and watch the teachers and listen, we go back to decipher, what do you think, Erin? Now talk to me as a teacher that they're doing and how can we do it better? What did you do at Franklin? Which you can see some of this great successes Franklin has enjoyed. So I'm tapping into that wonderful skill set of Erin as a teacher, but also valuing the work that she does with Joe and the success they've enjoyed, knowing we can bring that to Sargent School. So I'm smuggling in that with Erin. The second thing I have is Deb Holman, who, as you all know, was the interim high school principal last year, who, and because I have many friends at the high school still, was a very valued leader for the high school. And now she is our special education director. So she is 7 feet away from my office. And sometimes she might say that might not be good because I tap into her strength from her leadership position at the high school here and at Brookline High School and in Newton at 2 very credible districts. So I'm thinking to myself, this really feels like I've got the best of both worlds to be able to have these people around me. So that said, with the leadership of Erin and Deb, combined, and then tying in these teachers yesterday from all grade levels, that we started a root cause analysis. And Deb was wonderful because if any of you have ever done, we started the meeting off with the compass points of, it's like a Myers-Briggs if you're not familiar with it. Really quickly we did it. And of the 9 of us, or 11 of us were in the room, a chunk of us, of the teachers, not myself, we're all West, the real detail-oriented folks. I'm a North, Deb is an East, Erin is a West, which is really nice to have that for the combination. I share that because, and they told me, Karen, 2 minutes and you're out. So I'm trying, but I'm energized by this, and I really want to share this from you with what happened yesterday. So we all came into it. One teacher was 15 minutes late, and she said, Leahy, don't fix the problem before I get there for this root cause analysis that is going to take some in-depth work. Deb has explained to me as an East, she said, Leahy, we're going to start here. It's going to get messy because everyone has to input what they think is the cause of the problem of why you're not seeing reflected the work that we're doing at Sargent School to be successful in MCAS. And she said, from that, we're going to go to this. We have to go slow before we can go fast. And being a North, I'd like to go solutions first and let's jump in fast. And so we set some ground rules, put up the stickers on the wall, and we all went, wow, there's a lot of West there. And I said, you know what the West want to know? All the details. Plus, they're teachers. So they're not proud, and they want to say, how do we fix this? Let's do it yesterday. And so you have to go slow to go fast, and they want to know the details. So it's really getting people out of their comfort zone. But after 3 hours, I had 2 text messages, and this morning at 7 o'clock, I had 4 people in my office shortly after that to just say, that's the first time I have ever felt like it wasn't a non-focused, or it wasn't, we're just going to do one thing and now we're going to run really fast and we're going to fix this problem. It was deliberate. We started here, we got to here. We still have more work to do, and the next step will be, and Dr. Price has offered, I said I would like to take them away from school and be able to make it an impactful retreat type So I called John Packard at Brooks School, and he graciously offered the Frick Dining Hall. I'm going to take the whole group over. Dr. Price has agreed to let us out on the December 12th, all school.
January.
Beg your pardon. January. She doesn't know about the 12th. I asked her if I could do that too.
Check your text.
I'm supposed to ask you if you'll all substitute that day at Sergeant. And so we're going to go over there. We're working right now on a few through the help of Mr. Gilligan. And this is interesting too, is Mr. Gilligan's dissertation. He's been talking to me and helping me so much with what his background has been. Dr. Price has also supplied me with a mentor who was a former elementary school principal in Winchester, also in Newton. When she left Winchester, she went to Newton as the bottom of 15 elementary schools, and after 3.5 years, moved them to the middle and above pack in Newton. Newton. And what she doesn't know, I hope she doesn't watch this, is that she is way underpaid for how I'm tapping into her. She's come to the school 2 or 3 times for a couple hours at a time, but then the emails and phone calls and the questions. So the thing that I want to leave you with is that bottom piece, North Andover Public Schools District and the elementary school leadership support. I can't tell you how empowering that is for me to know, as you just heard tonight from just this group, that they have done some great successes, and I want you to know completely how generous they have been as a freshman principal. And so to know what they've done, and I'm tapping like crazy into their successes to hear, bringing Erin along with me and hearing what she has to say from Franklin, and then knowing that I have the likes of Dr. Price and Greg behind me offering so many ideas, it's completely inspiring. And so I just feel that the faculty is ready. They're chomping at the bit to get going, but again, we have to be mindful of to go slow to go fast, but we will go fast eventually. And there's just great things in store for Sergeant School.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Karen. Oh, I feel like I need a minute. All right. So last but not least, the Thompson School. One thing I want to mention, first, I really just want to thank, you've heard the principals talk a lot about their staff and how hard our staff are working. The same at Thompson. I can't say enough about our staff. It's worth noting that this test, Joe mentioned the increased rigor. It was new. It was on the computer. The timelines were much later than anticipated from the state last year, and it was literally almost the end of March before we could actually train and take a look and see what this test looked like. So to think that our teachers then pulled it off with kids in classes 2 weeks later as we started our testing window, I've got to give them all the credit in the world, because not only are they trying to teach and instruct kids, they're trying to learn all of this and make sure that they're providing a good environment for the kids in which to take this new test in. So I think it's just really worth noting. Certainly we'll all have a lot more experience with it this year. I noted 3 successes for Thompson in looking at the tests. So first, both of our SGPs in grade 5, we went from a 58.5 in ELA, to a 70. And as you've heard previously, we want to be over 50. A 70 is outstanding. And we held sway at a 54 in math, again, despite the increased rigor of the test this year. And while there were dips, as Dr. Price had spoken to you all previously, dips across the state, and certainly dips in the North Andover Public Schools, and we all experienced dips in our meeting and exceeding percentages. I was pleased to know that in grade 3, our dip was, we were 55% and 60% respectively for our meeting and exceeding percentages. And it's interesting to note that the dip in ELA was only 5%, and that's despite our third graders have no MCAS experience, this brand new computerized testing, and the increased rigor of the test. So I think it's something we can build on, certainly going forward for our students. And then finally, the last thing, I was happy, although we still need to look at all these kids. I definitely anticipated higher percentages here, but it's worth noting that we had a very low percentage of high-needs students not meeting expectations. And in fact, most of our subgroups, except for one or two that were just over 5%, most of our identified subgroups at the Thompson School scored below 5% for not meeting. And it's worth noting there in parentheses, and I thought you should all know that 75% of the students at Thompson who tested last spring were in an identified subgroup. That's a pretty big number. So what's our area of focus and what are we going to do about it? So while it is a success that we had low numbers of students not meeting, we also did not have a high number of students exceeding or meeting expectations among our students with disabilities, 14%, and the majority of our students with disabilities fell in the partially meeting expectations. It will be important for us with this new test to take a look at our item analysis and see, in fact, where in that continuum did our kids lie. Did they lie in the lower end of that, the middle end, or are we talking about a large percentage of kids that sort of missed moving into the other categories by a short margin, a question or two? And where, in fact, did our students with disabilities and all of our students fall down on the particular items related to the standards? So what are we doing about this at Thompson School? Sort of what have we been doing and what are we doing now and going forward? I would say our biggest change was this year we implemented a new master instructional schedule. This was the collective efforts of the staff last year, and then a small, very passionate group of teachers who worked with me to build a schedule from the ground up, and we basically blew up everything we were doing to rebuild it. We had a specialist schedule, we had a lunch recess schedule, but there was a wide range in terms of the instruction. So once we figured all that out and we came up with instructional priorities among the districts, among the grade levels, we set out to build a schedule that met the needs that the teachers wanted. Surprisingly, we were able to achieve everything that every grade level wanted, which is near impossible to do in building a schedule. And in the end, we could all say this was a schedule that was a collective effort. So we're now living that, but the teachers know that the creation of a schedule is just the first step on the journey. So we've started on the road. This is not probably where we'll end up with our schedule. We'll have a variety of checkpoints this year in our collaborative time to see how it's working by grade level and across the school. The real lens that we looked at with this was move out of your comfort zone in your particular grade and take a look at what's important instructionally K-5. So we shifted a lot of things around this year, and it's worth noting that we really eliminated some inconsistent allocation of time and subjects across grade levels and in some cases within grade levels. So we came to agreements on those things, and it's really built around the idea that this idea of time as a variable can really impact student achievement. And I'll give you a small example of analysis I did in a former school I worked in where we undertook this effort to change the schedule. We actually combined grade levels for our lunches, so instead of them being all over, we sort of combined that, and we tried as much as we could to pair some of the specialists either at the beginning or immediately after lunch. Again, every time you line up kids and put them on the move, you lose valuable instructional time. And you know, as much as you can capture that time back, teachers would want that. So you line up a group of kids, depending on the grade, you're talking anywhere from 2 minutes, unless you have to talk to the fourth kid in line and the fifth kid about, to 5 minutes potentially. So by combining some of these things and eliminating some of the transitions and the need to move from place to place in the school, if you conservatively estimate 5 to 10 minutes a day, that can add up to almost an extra week of instruction at the end of the school year. And while teachers wouldn't want to work an extra week, and we hope we don't have a snowy winter this year, they would very much like to have an extra week to be able to teach their students, especially as you've heard Eureka and the challenges in really trying to teach programs with fidelity and stay on point. So we're super excited about the schedule. The early returns are things are going well. There's a lot of things we still want to look at related to special education, push-in, collaboration, and so forth, so we'll keep working on that. We did extend our
Excuse
RAS
me,
Kids subscriptions.
Real quick,
Yes.
can I just interrupt?
Mhm.
So you said that for each of the different grades, they all kind of had different needs and they kind of got what they wanted as part of a revamp of the schedule. Could you just give us an example of what that means?
Sure. So we first looked at what was our current state. So I asked every grade to take a look at how much time were they spending on all the different content areas. And we included we included everything.
Sure.
Everything. And then they were then asked, if you had your ideal schedule, what would you want? So then the question was, and this was after a lot of other work, so I'm really shortening a lot of work
Sure,
we did.
that's okay, yeah.
What are your instructional priorities? And really the centerpiece of it was reading and math, and everything came out from that. So, for example, a lot of the teachers in the younger grades said, we really want a longer literacy block, and we would prefer that in the morning. For example, our kindergarten, they went to specialists early, and so their day was pretty choppy. There was a
Right.
lot of transitions. So they said, ideally, we'd like to have the kids, we'd love afternoon specialists so we could have a long period of time within which to teach, to really use our professionalism. We know that our kids will need breaks. We know our kids can't sit for X amount of time. But we would like a longer period of time to instruct them in literacy and in math. So that would be an example of what we achieved. What that required was flip-flopping where people were traditionally in terms of when they sent their kids to specialists or when they might have instructed their kids and so forth in a different content area. So that would be one
That's great.
example of that.
That's great, I love
One
it.
other huge benefit is when you have a schedule and you know that literacy is being taught at a certain time, it allows actually special education and other support to be consistent. So if you
Right.
don't have that schedule, it can become a dance when a special educator knows, should I be pushing in, should I be pulling out? I don't want to pull out the kid at the wrong time. But when you have that consistency, one of the things that Chris was able to do was to build a special education schedule so that people knew, you know, this kid was going to get pulled out during this block, and so that there was a consistency with that.
Right. No, I love it, and I think, you know, just really to echo Dr. Price's comments. I mean, I think from a special education perspective, you know, the opportunity to pull those kids for longer periods, you know, where they need some assistance or, you know, need modeling in other
Or
places.
push-in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's our
Great.
sort of our challenge going forward. We do have a high proportion of students on special education plans, and I won't say we're not still struggling to really find out where we can push and where we can't. But by having the schedule now, we can at least start to become more strategic going forward in the coming years about how we can perhaps infuse co-teaching into our school,
Right.
or, you know, if we get resources, how we use those resources in terms of our special ed teachers and our teaching assistants. So,
That's really exciting.
so
Thank
I
you.
just want to mention
And other
too-
schools have
Yep.
that. This was just a change at Thompson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, but thank you for doing it. Yeah.
And I think we had talked previously when I came the first couple of years. This was a change really as a result of my entry plan there, talking to the staff, and really recognizing this is a need at the Thompson School. So Greg, I think, mentioned RAS Kids. It's a wonderful online program for both comprehension and reading skills, so we extended that. We bought licenses for our special education students. So not only can they use it at school, they can also use it at home. Our special ed teachers have sent home letters. It's also used in the lower grades a lot with the students. Last year, we really thought strategically and expanded our use of Title I support. So we placed a focus on early literacy skills in kindergarten and first grade when looking at our data. So we did that 5 days a week, and in tandem with our reading specialists, with Jacqueline Taylor, our reading coach, and with our teachers, we were able to really identify who was doing what was the instructional focus, and how often were we going to progress monitor kids to kind of check on how they were doing. And again, we're taking a look at that this year as well. The other thing we've done is last year and this year, we have been purchasing more Chromebooks in addition to the generous amount of Chromebooks we've been getting from the school district. This year, we purchased 10 more Chromebooks, really for some of the purposes that you see up there. Our teachers want to be able to get going with Lexia, so we purchased more Chromebooks for that purpose. Thompson School has a high percentage of ELL students, as Atkinson does, and there are some wonderful programs that the students can take advantage of on there to support their learning in addition to what they're learning in the classroom. So we've purchased some more for that purpose. We have teachers in first and second grade really using them. I need to highlight our first grade teachers who came to me last year with some ideas for how they could use Chromebooks. Dr. Price visited yesterday and actually saw them in use in a first grade classroom. And our first grade teachers are very articulate and clear about the purpose for that and how they see it, really helping students progress. And then finally, special education. We went to the special education teachers this year. They were kind of borrowing and pleading for Chromebooks. And I said, what do you need this year? So we purchased 5 more to round out what they had. So now they're using them in small groups and so forth to support. It's not the primary mode, but it's in support of some of the other things that they're doing, particularly in some small groups where you can have a real wide variety of reading levels amongst a group of 5 to 8 students, let's say. Sometimes the reading levels can span 2 years in a group like that. So it's a nice extra piece of support. And I just wanted to say, as the last one, thank you all for your support. And as Karen mentioned, it's a pleasure to work with all of my colleagues. I think as you've seen, we've worked really hard this year together on these collaboration, the structure for collaboration, giving our teachers time to work together. Certainly the research supports that teachers will stay in the profession and stay committed and really be passionate if they can have that time with their colleagues. And while they're still having lunches and, we all have our 7 o'clock people and our 6 o'clock people, I think knowing that they have this time is critical and important. And they'll have 21 times this year that they can get together throughout the year. That's a lot of power in that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Wow.
I have one question. So, I know, Karen, you alluded to it with Erin's knowledge. To what extent do you all share your successes, your strategies for successes? Like the Kittredge's grade 4 math.
Stop the midnight phone calls, okay?
I was just going to say,
we're in touch all the time.
I really don't want the year to end for one regard, is that I can't continue to say, come on, Cushing, I'm a freshman principal, cough it up, what are you doing, come on. But sincerely, Erin has been a wonderful bridge just because of the craziness of our days, but because of Joe, like for me to connect with Joe or anyone through the day, it's tough. So by email and phone calls, but because of Erin, I have that direct pipeline with Joe, like what's Clark doing with this and how are you guys? But yesterday, Greg called me just to check on, and I can't emphasize as a new person in it, I was concerned coming from the high school background and then just my experience with elementary principals at 3 of the schools that I worked at, that I was hoping that I wasn't going to be an island, and I can tell you that completely, that it's not just been the support from a central office, but in sharing practices and then in helping with developing schedules and looking at the collaboration time. That's where I feel very empowered because of the work that has to be done. I'm not doing it alone because there's such accessibility, and so we do share because I ask a lot of questions.
I would also say structurally at the district level, we added an additional leadership meeting this year
Oh,
where it's
yeah.
just the
That's another-
principals
yeah.
and the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and it's not our full leadership team, which I think has been a nice
That
change.
has a great feel to it.
And I also, not to get too into this, but if you notice how these folks are seated tonight, it's a comment on every 4 of the gentlemen said, we want to be here to support Leahy tonight, because it's a tough night to kind of say, hey, we're struggling a bit. And we talked a lot about this program, where she was going to go and all that, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And we also meet monthly before our leadership meetings, away from the bosses. Over
Which is a
at
lot more
Kittredge.
fun.
Over
And,
Rich Pops for pizza.
Yeah, Rich
Not
buys the
bad.
pizza. And so there's extra sharing time there
That's
aside
pizza.
from what
Great.
Erin mentioned.
Sure.
Might ask us the date and the time.
Yeah, right.
And Gilly always tries to take some of that, but it's for good
I would
reasons.
say, Holly, that Karen and I, as an example, recently met because we share Deb Holman. She alluded to Deb Holman. So we met to talk about how we could support her, what we need in regard to our students, in special education. So I think it happens in so many ways naturally.
It's good you take it.
I mean, I noticed, especially, well, I know from Mr. Cushing, because my kids go there and I get those phone calls, and like every day you put all those messages out.
Right.
But you know, you're so proud of the culture at Kittredge, and Greg, you were just talking about the Atkinson Way, and you were really focused on, you know, the kids that you had from day one when they walked into kindergarten. And I think that's great. I mean, we're very proud of you having that kind of enthusiasm for your individual schools. Obviously, our job is to make sure that all 5 elementary schools are performing. It'd be interesting to see what happens, you know, next year when we have kindergartners all at one place, and then they go to your individual schools. So they didn't start with you from day one.
Right.
And to see how because obviously you're tracking those kids, how they do every single year, and who's growing, who's not growing. So it's something that, you know, we'll, I think, have to, you know, keep in mind going forward, that we'll see. I don't want to put too much focus on this, because I know for a fact that this is not the end all be all. I'm obviously more concerned at this moment how our teachers and our kids are accepting these results, and how that conversation's going, because as you know, we were in the Globe this past weekend, and I think it's a difficult conversation right now for people. So I guess after that comment, my question is, how is that conversation going?
For me, I can say that one of the things that I spoke about when I was alone, after Greg and Jen were with the faculty and they'd left, that I shared with them the reason why I was so invested and felt that we were already a step ahead is because I have come to know them for 3 years, and I know that anytime you have a shared vision, and I mentioned the work ethic, but when you have a shared vision, the work ethic, and that goal set, you have to have one key ingredient for any team to be successful, and it's trust. You got to trust each other, and that's when we've had some really great conversations. And the result from last year in applying for the position and feeling the support from them, that came through from them to me, of their trust. And so I think to start out with any good work like that, they're at a good place. Naturally, they don't feel good with it. Like I told them, it's not reflective of who we are. But I think that when you have that foundation set of trust mutually, that the work is there, they're ready to rise to the challenge.
Have you guys been getting questions from parents about the kids scoring in a different performance level? Has that come to you?
No.
I met with my PTO just Tuesday night.
And you guys are all doing PTO meetings with, yeah.
PTO meetings.
And we brought it up, and I talked about, you know, you had a student who was in advance, they might now be in meeting expectations. I stole a phrase from Mr. Gilligan, it's not time to jump out the window yet, it's just, you know, we looked at the different, no, but really, we looked at the different raw score rankings and how that changed, and parents understood it, and I haven't got any, and I know I have a number of students who were advanced last year that got meeting expectations this year, and I've seen the parents since, and we've talked about it, and nobody's.
Is that pretty much
yeah.
I
the
think
sense
it's
of it?
also made easier too, because as a central office leadership and as a leadership, we discussed first this test, the changes, presenting it. So we have met with our staffs. We decided when there was actually a building-based day, staff meeting day. So I think a lot of it is in presenting. It's in some ways starting over. It's a baseline year. It's a more rigorous test. So, and we had all of our staff to have that conversation, and we were able to develop that common language. And we talked about, okay, you're in a conference, and the parent comes in and says, what happened? Here's how we can talk about that. Here's what we can say. And if you're struggling with that, let us know so we can help you with that. So I think it started when we had, so I feel like it made it a little bit easier to be able to talk to the staff and in turn talk to the parents and the PTO about the test. And as you said, it's one piece.
Right.
And the staff too, we said at the parent night, aside from the slideshow of the MCAS data, I said I would like to put up John and Brett and Lila and Michael and all of the pictures that it's not lawnmower parts, they're kids. So it's the holistic picture of all of the kids to the teachers of what they do, for them to be joyful, confident learners, that it's not anxiety-filled test takers, but they do such work on the whole student that's what I'm so proud of, that there's an invested relationship, that the kids feel safe, they feel connected, And when you're doing good work like that, then you go from, okay, what is it specifically in the areas of the standards that we're not addressing as we should be? But the rest of the whole picture, that's what I'm confident about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great you're having those conversations. I'm glad they're going well. Seems like the only people who probably upset are like the real estate agents who have to sell houses based on this stuff. Anyways.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the collaborative effort. All right, go home.
I would encourage you too, as you go through this year, as you recognize things that you feel like you need for support from school committee, that you'll let us know what supports you'll need.
Thank you.
I said Helen will get them for you.
I'm on it. But if we don't know what they need,
Of course, absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
We'll send a representative every meeting.
It's the rookie.
I want to see you guys drawing straws.
Great. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, I definitely would have been on Cushing's talk the longest, but, you know.
Thanks.
All right, our next piece of old business are 3 overnight trips. We have the Scarlet and Black Singers going to Montreal, and then the whole choir going on a Boston trip. Take it one at a time.
a few questions about the Scarlet and Black, and so I have some answers here. So yes, the only trips that we are going to have this year are the Montreal and Boston trip. We are not anticipating any other ones. This is from Sarah Durkin. Yes, there are some students who are going to Montreal, but they're also going to Boston. However, the students in the Scarlet and Black Singers are also being paid for a number of holiday season events, which will help them defray the cost of going to both of these trips. So just so you know, the Scarlet and Black Singers
That's the smaller group.
raise some funds. So the Boston trip should not actually impact them. It should be a cost-neutral trip for them. And there was a specific question about why they're staying a second night in Boston rather than coming home. And the reality is it's because the students need to get changed 2 different times throughout the day, once after the performance and once for the awards dance. They wouldn't have any place to put their bags and or to change, so that's why they get the rooms. That's the answer. There we go.
Okay.
And Sarah does say if staying for 2 nights is a concern, we could look into only staying on the Saturday night and coming home after the performance on Friday and going back to for the performances on Saturday.
All right, so we can talk about that one in a second. That's the Boston one.
Yep.
All right, so the first one is the Scarlet and Black Singers going to Montreal.
And they get paid to go up there?
No, over the holiday seasons, they
They're
do
doing
some
stuff
events
here.
that they then get
Oh,
some
okay.
funds to help the cost of the trip
Oh,
be
okay.
reduced.
I
So they're not
misunderstood.
making
I
individual money,
misunderstood,
but the group makes money so that the kids don't have to pay for the
Yeah, the
trips.
smaller, the 27 kids.
Yep.
Right.
For the Boston trip.
Right. All right, so the first one is,
I'll make a motion to approve this trip.
I'll second that.
okay, motion by Mr. Trissy, second by Mr. McDevitt for the Scarlet and Black Singers going to Montreal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, so the next one is the Boston choir trips. This is the one that I had a bunch of questions on, and I don't know if people actually looked at the itinerary, but I did, and actually thank you, Ms. Durkin, for giving those answers. So this trip is right before April vacation, so it's not like it runs into coming back at a funny time. I just thought it was really odd to be staying at a hotel in Danvers. I think it's in Danvers, or maybe it's in, it's right nearby, but staying in a hotel half an hour from here.
It says Sheraton.
Sheraton, I think it's in, it's,
It's right on that Danvers line, Route 1, I think, right?
I looked at it earlier, but, so 175 kids staying in a hotel 2 nights for events at Danvers High School. I just thought that seemed like a little extravagant, when you've got a lot of kids then needing to have their parents support them financially going and doing that. Since these are the only 2 trips, I feel less.
So the Boston Festival's in Danvers, actually, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm looking at that itinerary here. So on Friday, they leave at noon. They go down to Danvers High School, and they warm up singing, and then they perform. Then the treble choir performs, and then they leave the 4 Point Sheraton, which I think maybe it's not Danvers, but it's right near there. And then they drive down to Boston to go to Quincy Market for dinner and go see Blue Man Group. So they're not going to Boston. They're going to Danvers High School.
Dinner at Quincy Market.
Right. It must be the whole festival?
Yep.
Okay. So they're part of a bigger group. It's not just our group doing that, I guess. And then the next morning, they're going to Danvers High School from the hotel. Concert, going to Boston for lunch and a duck boat tour. Then going back to their hotel, back up this way, going to Danvers for a party, going to the Doubletree in Danvers, which is a different hotel, for a dinner and a dance, which is, again, it's all camaraderie. I get all this. I understand it's a high school thing. It's fun. It's a great experience. It's all so close to here. It seems weird to be staying in a hotel, 175 kids, all these chaperones. I just thought it was a concern. I might be the only one thinking it's concerning. Again, it's really fun, and I get that, but I just wanted to ask those questions. So that was why I asked those questions.
I think legit questions. I didn't dive into as much as you did, but Danvers does seem close by.
So saying it's a
Do-
Boston festival is just a little confusing too, but
Well,
I'm
it
sure
sounds
they
like
didn't
but
name
they're-
it
they're
that.
They're going to Boston. That's part of the itinerary. That
Yeah,
part.
but they're not performing in
but
Boston.
But the drive. I'm agreeing with you.
Right. No, I'm making
Yeah.
sure, I'm making sure I'm reading it right.
But then they're coming back out. So why don't they just come back to North Andover? I would say North Andover is closer than Danvers. I guess.
So my guess on this is that it has to do with, what we were hearing before. Every time you line people up, you lose time. So if they're captured in the hotel room, so to speak, it's going to be a lot quicker to move those bodies from place to place. You're not going to have kids, not making it home. You're not going to have teachers sitting in the parking lot, later and later at night, 11:30 at night, waiting for parents to pick up. I would think that it's a logistically easier thing to do. And I think it appears that we have a tradition of valuing these sort of overnight experiences. So that would be my take on.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a bunch of other students from other high schools staying there? Is that part of the?
Yeah, I mean, this is a
It's
festival.
it's other high schools, so I'm assuming that, and again, that's part of the experience. That's why
Yeah.
there's a dance. And then Saturday, but they are at one hotel for the dance. They go back to their other hotel, which is a half an hour from here, by 10. And then they wake up at 8:30 and go home, or get picked up. So I'm actually not sure if the bus takes them back to North Andover, or they get picked up by their parents in Danvers.
If you would like, I can have Ms. Durkin come. I mean, I will say.
And I feel like I'm being a jerk, because I do love these experiences. I do think they're great.
You're not being a
But
jerk. Listen,
we drive down to Danvers. We drive down to Danvers all the time for like 1 hour of indoor soccer and come back. So it just seems
Is this Cocoa
awfully
Keys?
weird.
Is this Cocoa Keys?
It's so they're staying at the
There's a hotel
Fort
that's
Points
right there. I don't know
Sheraton
if
in
that's
Danvers. It says.
Connected, but
And then but the dance and the awards and the dinner, again, with all the other schools and the festival, it's very cool, is at the Doubletree in Danvers.
So if we did not do this, what we would be asking parents to do throughout the weekend is some pretty significant
Driving
driving
around,
back
right.
and forth.
Right.
And then on top of that, there are a number of events that they're being part of.
Right, which is
and
great.
they would lose out on those
Yes.
experiences.
I understand that.
So, it's, normally our music program does a trip. This is
Much
just
further,
in Danvers,
right,
it's not
right.
in LA. So, this is an opportunity to be part of that experience.
And I understand that.
And, it's interesting that Ms. Durkin said if you were gonna pick one night, we'd actually stay there Saturday night, and I think that's because
Because
of
of the
the
dance.
logistics.
Mhm.
But it's also the logistics of where do the kids change, how do they go from here to there, we have to perform, and then we have to put on.
And
dinner.
at 11 o'clock at night, you're in the parking lot of the high school waiting for the parents to show
Yeah.
up, and they don't come. Yes, I do understand all that. So I guess my big question is, I would like us to consider some of these things, like when we're picking trips in the future, to see if
Well,
the other ways to do it.
and I would add clarification that the music department, as I understand, has decided to go on trips every other year. And the choral classes have decided to go on more than every other year trips.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yes, to compete, and I mean, I
Yes.
also want to remind you that our chorus
Are huge,
programs
right.
continue to get gold medal after gold medal after gold
Right.
medal in these competitions.
I've
Absolutely
also
they
got to
do.
think that, shuttling back and forth, if we're doing buses, we probably have pretty significant busing costs as well.
well, it
and
looks
that-
like they're busing anyway, though, because they're
Right.
busing down to
Right, but if
Boston
they had
and
to
go
come
back.
back
Each
to
way.
Right, and then if they had to come back to North Andover, and
No, I
then the
understand.
next morning had to come back to North Andover to pick up to drive to Danvers for the festival, I just think that we're probably adding, and buses aren't cheap.
Right.
We're not probably saving that much money in the overall cost of that. I mean, that
Yeah, 4
might-
kids in a room is not gonna.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even know it was 4 kids around.
Well, that's what we do.
that's the norm, yeah.
You're not selling it.
No.
Again,
It's better than Ace's classroom.
no, I do love all these, and we're only doing 2 trips. This is
Yeah.
one of 5 choral trips because we keep winning awards,
Right.
which is what it felt like we were doing last year.
I think it's a good observation. I mean, I think if they were, done at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and,
Right.
Nothing kind of happening, and then, starting back up at 11 the next morning.
Right.
I mean, I would probably have a little
More concern.
challenge with that, but I
Mhm.
mean, I think they're there. I think part of this is going away, having an opportunity.
Oh, it's
to-
super fun, yeah.
To do this. I'm still in favor of it,
Mhm.
even though it's around the corner.
Very good. So,
So-
anybody want to make a motion to approve this trip?
So moved.
I will second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Great.
And then the last trip is the one that we've now done for, this will be the 3rd year, which is a standalone field trip in the summer, 2.5 credits, where the students go to the Tetons. I think it's been quite a successful trip. We have a parent who has sent their child on the trip, sitting here. I think it's a good experience for our kids.
This is almost like a special summer course.
Yeah, it's basically summer school in the Tetons.
Yeah, it came to my attention because I happen to have a student in this class who happens to be graduating this year, that this course did not go into GPA. So I would hope at some point that would be
And we can take that up.
looked at.
Yeah, we can look at that.
If it's a core science class, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but
I can ask Mr. Jackson.
clarification on
Yep.
that.
That's cool.
So the only, I think, clarifying question that I have is, this is for this year's current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors,
Well,
correct?
last year we took this year's current 8th, 9th, 10th. So it was this year's 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th.
So it's the
Once
current high school
the high school starting,
okay.
because
July
we are
1st.
not, it is not advised for us to take students who are no longer part of our
Right,
community.
yeah, that I'm absolutely
So
fine
once
with,
they
but I
have
didn't know we
graduated, they're-
included current,
We included current 8th graders.
Okay.
And that was because we did not get 12, which we needed, and we had 3 or 4 8th graders. And actually, we were very anxious about that. I will be very forthright. There was a lot of anxiety at central office about that. And the feedback from us was that it was actually a wonderful way to have the 8th graders kind of bring themselves into the high school, and it was
Right.
very
That's a good
successful.
Because by this
Good
point, they
feedback.
are freshmen.
But I will
Yeah.
let you know that a few people in this building were anxious about sending 8th graders to the Tetons. And we took a deep breath, and it worked out really well.
awesome.
I'm gonna come look at one of the Tetons then. That is what it is.
I'd like to move that we accept the Teton trip as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Picard, second by Ms. Lynch. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's great,
I'd love to take that course.
great place.
All right, and now,
CIP, Mr. Mealy.
Mr. Mealy.
Wake up. Here we go.
Yeah, so we really haven't changed anything since the submission. Just as a reminder, we really only have one item. It's the annual IT infrastructure. The big project, as David was talking about earlier, is the kindergarten project, which was approved last year. And then in the notes, you'll see that some of our big items are not in the capital plan because they are anticipated being part of the facilities master plan phase 2.
Right.
When you say that they're part of that, that means that we are not responsible for planning to pay for them.
Well, we don't literally pay for them anyway,
Right,
but
right.
I mean, it wouldn't
But
come
we
out,
wouldn't have to
it's
pay.
not anticipated to come from the capital
Right.
plan, correct.
Any questions? More questions?
Not a lot to question. All right. So do you need a motion?
I think so, right?
So-
Or do
I move
we
we
need to approve
approve.
this, or are we?
Yes.
I thought so, okay.
So
I
I will
move we
move to approve the fiscal year 19 CIP submittal as presented in the packet.
Yes.
Is that a
Mr.
second?
Devitt?
All right.
Mr. Trissy?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, we don't have to, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, no. Enrollments. Very fancy charts.
Again, this is Mr. Mealy.
Okay, so October 1 is when we have to submit to the state our official enrollment numbers, and they get certified by the state. And so that has happened now, and we are able to compare our enrollment projection model to the actual numbers. And that's what you see here. If you look, the green is what the model had projected, and then in the blue, you can see the actual numbers down below. In that second row down below where it says model projections, you can compare the model projection with the actual and NESDEC. We're running out of NESDEC about 6, 7, 8 years ago. Did projections, and so we still have those. I think next year might be the last year we have for what they had projected. So I've included those as well. If you look, you can see that the total number projected from the model is exactly the same, which is coincidence, not the brilliance of the model, no. But it is what they said to expect when they were talking about how to put together your projection model, that you're going to see fluctuations from one year to the next, one grade to the next. And this is a great example of that you can see plus and minus 9s and 10s, but they kind of equal out for the total. And it just as a reminder of how it works is we take the previous 5 years for each increase from one grade to the next and anticipate that being the increase again for the same grades. So for instance, first grade to second grade averages an increase of 6 students. And so that's what we would project it to be. And if it comes in this case, it wasn't an increase of 6, it was a decrease of 15, so that's why you have the minus 9 compared to the actual. But they all, in this case, they all evened out, and the model projected exactly the same number. So, and what I also did is provided you with the data, and I like this one because what I do in this one, by color, you can see the change of the same group from one year to the next, all the way from kindergarten to graduating 12th grade. So if you look at the green, we had 333 kindergarten students that became 391 first grade students. And you'll notice a smaller change now from kindergarten to first grade than there used to be because we went from half-day kindergarten
That's right.
to free full-day kindergarten. And so then that 391 went all the way down and became 312, which is a pretty good drop compared to other years for that particular group. And so you can follow the change in the groups. Then I took that and kind of just graphed it a couple of times. And this is a little messy.
That's where I was
But
laughing.
what I was looking for was the pattern that you might see. And you can see even better in the second graph, because then I only did the transition years of first grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, and 12th grade. So what you can see in most groups is a steady climb from first grade up to 6th grade, and then a drop from usually from 8th grade to 9th grade, and then pretty level for the most part during high school years. So you can just see the patterns.
Second in the graphs.
Right.
Yep. So it was more to show you what we can do and the numbers that we have, and maybe solicit some questions if you'd like to have them.
So my only comment on this is there's a lot of districts, especially in this area, that are losing students. That is not the case in North Andover. You could see that since 1993 we've grown almost 1,100 students, and over the last even 5 years we've stayed relatively consistent. We're not seeing massive fluctuations. I think that's really important as we think about the facility needs of this district, is that we aren't anticipating massive reductions in kids.
Right.
And, as we all know, our facilities are maxed at this point. So for us not to address our facility needs is concerning. Yet, we're also not seeing massive increases in students. So, being able to kind of, if you look at this, it's a pretty steady state over the last bunches of years. And, you can also see, which is really interesting, is our numbers are not fluctuating greatly even from K to 12. I mean, we're not looking at major changes that are happening as you follow a class through. You're seeing, the last class, the current class, the senior class is only 50 kids more than when they started in kindergarten. So you're not seeing huge increases. So it's just something to think about.
What I found interesting in that slide, though, is funny that for the first 10 years of that graph, we got 900 new students from 93 to 2004. And then only in the last 12 years, we've only got 100 new kids in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of stabilized.
We have.
Right.
Yes,
Pretty
yep.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
Good thing, too.
But I mean, we had the same, except the high school changing, the
Right.
facilities haven't changed much since '93.
Right, so.
Well, I mean, Tom, that's not true. Thompson, I don't know, what's the capacity of the new Thompson versus the old Thompson? I don't know if you know that.
I don't know what the old one was.
Maybe the class historian.
Historical knowledge, I do know that the Thompson, the old Thompson was roughly between 180 and 200 kids.
Oh, well, that's small.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old Thompson only had 2 grades per, or 2 classes per grade, right?
It was like
And
that
now
for a
it's-
while
If
here,
that,
too.
if that.
Yeah.
And then the new Thompson has run anywhere from
Usually between 300 and 350.
301 and 425.
Yeah. That came online in 99, 2000, something like that, 81?
Yeah, like 99, right when I moved here.
99, yeah.
And the three classrooms, or 3 were added at Kittredge.
Correct.
And then when
Now
we
it's,
were-
yeah, now it's
that
3.
was
So imagine what
5
class
years
sizes were
ago.
back then.
Oh, they were bad.
So some years were 36.
And then when
Yeah, I was gonna say.
when did Franklin's kind of portables go on?
They've
A
been-
while ago.
I was thinking,
I think that was the 80s.
They were not.
These-
Was it really?
Both
Okay.
Atkinson and
80s?
Franklin are probably 30 plus each.
Those
Well,
portables.
portables.
okay,
That's why
Yep.
it's so appalling.
yeah, oh, I
Right.
know,
Thompson may have grown. They did add some portables at the old Thompson,
Yeah, they did.
okay.
the red ones.
They were modern with the Franklin in the 70s.
We just think it's important to think about the fact that we do have a pretty stabilized population at this point, and I think we're not foreseeing that changing dramatically.
Well, you can see the increase in high school after the new building was built, too.
Yep.
They retained much.
Yeah, that's what I
From
mean.
8th to 9th grade, exactly.
That was
Yep,
huge.
you saw that.
And also after we passed the override and we were able to provide,
Right.
and when we made the change to trimesters.
Right,
Some big changes at the high school that helped us with our retention of
yeah,
students there.
definitely.
The trimester schedule, do you think? Did you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we had kids at one point in 2 study halls a day without enough desks in the room for everybody to sit down.
was a
So
more
when we
efficient
changed to
model, so
trimesters,
we
it
could-
really improved
Right,
what we
I
were
understand
offering.
Offer more courses.
We're still recovering. I mean, we cut almost $3 million in, I think, 06.
Mm.
I shared with FinCom when I presented to them that we saw during the economic hard times, we saw less people going somewhere else, more kids
Right.
staying from 8th to 9th grade. But we didn't see the same rebound when, as times got better, it's not like it went back to where it was. It actually was a lower number still going
So we kept
compared to what it was. And then you can see in this one here, there's also a bounce back to the high school between 9th and 10th grade.
I was actually
Yes.
just gonna say that, because there's a pretty good drop, I'm not gonna say pretty good, but 20, 30 kids or so that drop between 8th and 9th.
Yep.
And then there's a pendulum where it
There's a
kinda
little bit
just
of, yeah, we see
jumps
some
back
kids
up
coming
again.
back.
So historically, we get a few kids that go somewhere else and they find it's not working.
Right. No, they miss their friends, they wanna be, part of North Andover. And,
Mhm.
Andrew Mailer always says, he can tell the economics of the town by the excise taxes and whether or not people are buying cars. So,
Excise taxes are increasing. Actually, the revenue and fixed
Oh, really?
cost increased the excise tax by a significant amount this year because excise
Okay.
taxes are increasing.
interesting.
The fun things you learn on the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee.
Nice.
So when do you do the next projection? Apply your next model to the next 3 years or something?
Well, we can do it now. It's, we have the October 1 numbers, that's when we see how we did.
Right.
now it's just a matter of taking,
Just-
now we just move up one year and include this year
Right.
as the 5th year.
Right.
Because that'll be something to look at the next couple of years with all these buildings and stuff. Great, thank you. What about the budget update?
We're still with Mr. Mealing.
Oops, sorry.
I'm still gonna beat the principals.
Mr. Cushing, for sure.
Okay, so you had asked about comparing, when we do these, where we are compared to the previous year at the same time. And right now, we are spending at a rate of 27.5% versus we were at 28.5%, so about 1% less, which is where we'd expect to be, given that we don't anticipate having to tap into the Special Education Stabilization Fund. So we're right where we would expect to be at this time of year.
Hope you didn't just jinx us on that one.
What happened?
He tells us that every
I hope
month.
you didn't, hope you didn't jinx us on that one.
No, well, I gotta have to tell you what the situation is.
Well, just to be really clear on that, we've been spending a lot of time on our out-of-district costs, which, as you know, are a huge driver. So our costs last year were $5.6 million. At this year, we're projecting costs of $5.265 million. It's the first time we can look at that sizable of a decrease in a decade. If so, and again, remember, $130,000 of that savings actually had to go to cover the fact that we did not get the circuit breaker reimbursement we anticipated. So we are doing some, so anyways, I think that's a huge part of why this is happening. And, we're using those savings, as we've already supported, to hire some additional positions in district to make sure we can keep those kids in district, so.
So with our out-of-district cost decreasing, what will the impact be on next year's circuit breaker?
That is a
It'll
great
be lower.
question. It'll be lower.
Right.
But,
Because we're a year
We're
behind
solving
and
our
we're
own problem.
reimbursed based on our claims.
so we're anticipating that. So we have made a decision not to, and we can talk about this when we do our budgeting, but Mr. Mealy and I have made a decision, along with Dr. Straight, to not decrease the general fund allocation to out-of-district so that we can anticipate a reduced circuit breaker. So we're going to stay at a $4 million allocation in our general fund towards to out-of-district costs.
Okay.
So it is sort of but as circuit breaker is becoming less and less predictable, it even over increases why we need to make sure that we're.
Absolutely.
And you'll
So-
hit a certain point in the year where you feel all right, that you can decide to
Yeah,
reallocate if you need
and
to.
we're doing that now. So like I will say, we're looking at hiring, and we'll bring it at the next school committee meeting, somebody at the high school to fit a specific need for 5 kids that if we don't fit, we may risk going out of district, and we can afford to do it because we're bringing students back.
So that's a lot of the work that really needs to be done that we've been doing for the last year or so that I've been here, is really analyzing the programs that we have in place. What are the needs of the students in those programs? Do we have the appropriate staff? And then with the help of our out-of-district coordinator, going out and visiting the students that are in out-of-district placements and really taking a look at who those students are, meeting the families, and ensuring that we have what we need in place to bring those students back to be successful here in North Andover. And many of the parents are very happy to be able to bring their students back here too, because they want them with their family and friends and be able to be educated in their own community. So it's been an effective, lot of work, but it's been very effective.
So I have one more question too. So I don't remember exactly the name of the law, but it was basically the Transition 22. I can't remember what it is, but I'm just curious on the impact of funding that that may have for us, or increased in cost. And so if I understand it correctly, we were required to educate students until basically their 21st birthday. 22nd, sorry. And then literally once that day hit, we were kind of done. And so now we are continuing to the end of the year?
Well, they're
No,
putting that
they're
forward.
putting it forward. It hasn't been approved.
Okay.
It would be a significant impact on
Yes, it would.
districts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so for instance, I will just tell you that for the next superintendent is going to have a banner first year when we have 2 students who are going to age out that are currently costing this district $600,000. So in the first year, next year at this time, we will be aging out 2 kids. If that law passes, it will be a $600,000 hit to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would carry that through until
Another
Till
year.
June.
To a graduation date
Yeah,
instead of a birth date.
instead of a birthday. Correct. So it wouldn't be a $600,000 hit, it would be whatever the difference is in their
Right.
birthday. So absolutely understand, a lot of the students we educate until they're 22 are significant, you know.
Sure.
So it's, and I understand it, I really do, and it's a tough reality for those parents. I've been at aging out birthday parties that are some of the hardest things I've ever had to do as an educator, because we've provided this support for this kid for 22 years, and then the next day, it's the parents. And I will tell you that districts that do it well, and I do feel we work very hard on this, work very closely with other agencies to say, now it's you.
Right.
So on those days, it's not like we just say, oh, goodbye. We have already worked with DMH or any of the other agencies to make sure that there's a transition plan for those students.
Okay.
Right,
So
we have-
just by having it on a June date, I would argue isn't going to make much of a difference in terms of,
Sure.
because most of the students who are with us are
October
22 are
birthday.
not graduating in June.
Mm.
Some are,
Okay.
but most aren't.
All right. Helpful
And
to
we've
keep
already
our eye
done
on.
multiple years' work with whether it's DDS or DMH or the different other agencies that, you know, as these students become adults, start working with them. We bring them to the table when the kids are 16 years old
Right.
to start working on those transition skills. And just as a reminder, one program that we did put together last year is the 18 to 22-year-old program that we have going on at the high school. Traditionally, as soon as a child that was going to go to 22 turned 18, they were moved to an out-of-district placement. So I created a program. We found two excellent teachers who are working on our 14 to 22-year-old life skills program and working with these outside agencies. And we're meeting with great success, and the parents are very, very happy with what's happening here. So we're really looking at how we can not only just save money for the district with regards to out-of-district placements, but really keeping those kids here where they're able to work in their community setting, they're able to learn adult living skills, travel training, right here in our own community, so.
Excellent.
And again, continued relationships with peers.
Absolutely, and family, yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you.
It's a tough reality, and when you hear the
Right.
stories of those families, it really resonates. But I would say we work really hard to transition those kids to other supports.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We have new business about the,
Yeah, so we do have the budget
Directives.
directives here, and Chairwoman Magley and I had spoken along with Holly about this. We actually have these are last year's budget directives. We just want to have a discussion and then we can adopt them. The reality is, we can put anything we want on these budget directives. If we do build the kindergarten, the budget is going to go towards opening the kindergarten. So that's really, I mean, we're already working on our budget plan, assuming that the bids come in and the kindergarten is going to be built. I don't see any dollar going anywhere else other than making sure that that kindergarten is opening with appropriate staffing. That is going to be our budget focus for this year. And by appropriate staffing, we don't just mean the teachers, we mean the counselors and the nurses and the secretaries and the custodians and the speech and language and the OT and the PT and the special educators and the reading support. When you start to add all of that up, the principal, you put all of that together, the numbers get to our allocation, if not above, very, very quickly. So, you know, we can have other priorities, but I would be very stunned if we were able to even think about those other priorities, because I think we owe a service to this community to open that kindergarten with the appropriate staffing, that building needs to be functional and not be asking lots of these folks to be traveling between multiple buildings and the kindergarten only be staffed by itinerant folks. I think, for instance, the kindergarten needs a full-time guidance counselor, and we shouldn't be pulling someone from other schools for that. That's one example.
well, the good thing is some of the items from this year's budgets, like some of the technology and other things,
Yes.
are falling off,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
will. So we'll be able to reuse those things.
And that is in line with our strategic plan. We actually, if you look at this, our goal was to reduce the percentage of classes K-5 that exceed the class size guidelines to 10%. We actually, by FY19, we actually did that this year. So we've hit that goal. If you remember, we presented that a few weeks ago. So I think we've hit a lot of these. But I just wanted to be realistic, as Mr. Mealy and I are starting to do the budget. It's going to be a very heavily kindergarten building focus this year. Yes, and if not, then we, so my suggestion would be that we talk about this at the 7th meeting, because we
Yeah.
will know.
Right.
And kind of any conversation about that is almost premature, because
Right.
if we are building the kindergarten, we can
Right.
redraft this, but it should say, open the kindergarten
Right.
successfully.
So this is last year, so you're looking at for that meeting having a
Yes.
different draft.
And if
Okay.
you would give me permission, I'll do it based on what that decision.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Right, well, we should know by the bids that come in.
Yes.
Right.
We'll know.
10 days or so before, yep.
Is that okay with everyone?
I think that makes
Fair.
perfect sense.
Okay. Last thing,
An overnight trip.
to Hyannis, farther than Danvers.
I know that one hotel too.
So this is our student council, that goes, I believe, every year. Is it to Hyannis that they go?
Yeah, they run for
Yeah.
office and,
Yeah.
2 years now.
In March.
yeah. It's all tied to the
Yep.
state stuff. I don't have any questions.
Okay.
So, it is the first reading, so I do like, and the other ones that we already approved tonight didn't necessarily have it, but I do like the fact that we're specifically identifying the costs that's here.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know, I
that-
saw
that's
that
been a
too.
little,
The other ones, I think we probably could have some estimates in there.
Yep, I can make
Not
sure
gonna
that
hold
happens.
that up for that,
Right.
but,
Yep.
I think it's important for people to know.
well, I've actually had some people ask me, is there ever any postmortem to some of these trips? Or we estimate what the costs are, and then things happen, and like, does NAMA fill in at the last minute for things that happen? Like, how, are there ever overages, and how are those handled?
You know, we can do that with Nature's Classroom if you like. 'Cause
Well, I think it would be
Nature's
good to
Classroom
find out, because
went
I'm
way
wondering who covers that overage. I mean, parents or whatever have paid in X, they fundraise Y, and then they go on the trip, they think they're all covered, and then all of a sudden, there are overages, if that even happens.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think Nature's Classroom, I would
Would be
love
a
to
good
get a.
measure.
Yeah, and I think that the district, I think it would be useful, and I will ask Dr. McQuaid to maybe come in February once we get through the budget. She spends a huge amount of time making sure Nature's Classroom happens. I think that the district has to make a decision on whether or not they want to continue that program. Because it's a huge cost, it's a huge amount of time.
I think it's been 3
And
years now that
this
they've done
is-
it.
This is 2, I think.
This was the second.
Only the second, okay.
And I think, with a new middle school principal, the question is going to be, is that going to be a focus for the district? And I think the new superintendent and the district is going to have to decide. I think the benefits, I think the kids are really liking the trip, but at the same time, the costs are quite extensive, both in terms of the cost, but also in terms of the man hours to make an entire 400-kid trip happen is complicated.
It's an awesome experience, but it's
a huge amount of
we've run
effort.
into, as you know,
Medicaid.
Andover had them cancel the night before in their 5th grade. The management
was tricky.
Interesting,
And this
okay.
year they get delayed, so
Well,
I'm sure
that
that
was-
a
yeah.
lot of shuffling.
Well, they're there right now, right?
They are.
Some, yeah.
So anyways, I think it would be
23
good to
days.
do a postmortem
Yeah,
on that one.
okay. I would love to see that.
Yep.
Not for everything, so that would be
But I do
overkill,
think
but-
probably most trips do some sort of internal postmortem. The people who propose them
Right.
talk about them afterwards.
But we approve this stuff and then we never hear,
Right,
so
right.
it'd be good to know if we're asking the right, maybe we're not asking the right questions when we do this stuff, or maybe this is a silly exercise, I don't know. Okay. Before I entertain a motion to, I forgot we had to move on to executive session. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share, or any other comments they need to make?
I would just share a shout out and a congratulations. Phil Vissering, one of our high school
right.
students from Troop 82, celebrated his Court of Honor for Eagle Scout on October 15th. So people bring these to my attention, and I know they're not directly related to the schools, but they are our students, and they'll
Yeah.
continue to have an impact in our community. This is a particularly young Eagle Scout. I think he's just a freshman.
That's right.
This year at the high school, so we can expect a lot of service and leadership from this young man. So congratulations to him.
And related to that, I actually should share that he did reach out to me to see if the school committee would send him a letter of congratulations, which I did take care of back in October, so he could put it on his special night, display it. His project was not related to school necessarily, but I think he wanted us to know about it, so I did send a letter.
Yeah, it was a trails project.
We should do a citation. We have those that we should do one of those.
Well, one of the challenges, and I did check with some of the Eagle Scout, I talked to Kim, is we have a lot of them, and not all of them reach out to us. I mean, Helen happens to know because she's involved,
But that's, that's dissipating,
Right.
it's time limited.
If they know that they're gonna get a citation from them, they're
Right.
gonna reach out to us. I mean, that happened, when I was a rep,
True.
I mean, we pump those things out all the
Well,
time.
I think it would be great. I just don't want to then leave someone else. Maybe we find a good way to formalize that.
Yeah, get the word out to the troop masters that, if they need those citations, they'd like to have them for their night of honor. And I've been to them, they're very
Yeah,
impressive.
I-
I mean, the things you have to
exactly.
do to become an Eagle Scout are really impressive stuff.
Right. No, and that's why my question was to her,
And the
should
gold
he come
awards as
here?
well, the Girl Scout Gold Awards.
That's exactly. Gold service
Now
awards.
girls
So,
are allowed
thank
to
you.
be part of Boy Scouts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would just say very briefly, last Friday afternoon,
Oh, I was-
Holly, Amy,
I forgot about
myself,
that. Thank you.
we met with members of the Board of Selectmen, Mark DeSalvo, and FinCom, and really just kind of did a rope exercise out in the woods off behind Gallagher Field, and really wasn't ropes. I mean, that's a little bit misleading.
It was
We were all
outdoor
pretty
ed
much on
class.
the ground, but a really great opportunity. There was an article, I think, in Sunday's Eagle, that really just talked a little bit about the collaboration and the teamwork in the building, and it was kind of fun to get to see a different side of people's personalities, and it was kind of interesting too, because we had these challenges that we had to do, and just how we all process them. And there was one that we started with that we kind of did it in whatever it was, like 20 seconds or 28 seconds, and we were like, oh, I think we can do like 15 or something, and then like, okay, great, we got it after about like the fourth attempt or something, and then they were like, usually they can do it in under one, and then we were
1
like,
second.
oh my God, we were on, and so we trying to figure out a bunch of different ways to do that and struggle, and it was just fun to work together. So just a neat, different experience, and it was fun. And then Mr. DeSalvo hosted us for dinner afterwards, and
I came for that part.
Mr. Teresi came for dinner with his family. So it was fun. It was nice to be together as an elected official with other officials in a just opportunity. I mean, we weren't discussing any business or anything, but we were just having an opportunity to get to know each other. So
And collaborate, yeah.
it was fun.
It was very, very cold.
And it was cold.
Yeah, thanks. I forgot to mention that.
And we're glad you all wore belts.
Yes, yes. One of the tasks, if the gentleman had not worn belts, we would still be in the woods.
Yes.
All
There's
right.
a lot of questions on that.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session where we will discuss strategy regarding negotiations with the North Andover Professional Support Association and Educational Administrative Assistance Association, and not return to this room.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lynch, second by Mr. McDevitt.
Roll.
Mr. Trissy,
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Ms. Picard.
Aye.
Ms. Lynch, and I, 5-0. Thank you. On to the next room.